The story begins with the main character driving down the street and stopping near a building. Students were taking pictures of a red racing car on the street. Someone shouted that Yuan had traded in his car for a new one. The main character opened the side door of the car and she came out of it. One student angrily said that the main character had just entered the university and was already dating a second-year student from the flight attendant class. A passerby adjusted his glasses and explained that if a guy is rich and has money, he has the right to choose his partner. An angry student said the main character has a whole Monopoly game. All the freshmen are crazy about him. Yuan walked down a crowded street accompanied by a tall and beautiful girl. The stranger looked at her with displeasure and said, discontentedly, that Zhuo Wangting's body couldn't be better than hers. She, lipstick in hand, told the girl not to let Zhuo outshine her. The main character turned his head to the side and looked at the people around him. Yuan was strolling past the shops with his girlfriend. It so happened that his luxurious and lavish lifestyle ended during his first year. The disaster left the protagonist's 3 travel agencies in hot water, leaving him $1 million debt. Yuan entered the student's room and invited his friend to play at the internet cafe. Lao responded with a disgruntled voice, claiming they weren't that close. Another guy in the room told the protagonist he wasn't rich anymore. Yuan stood sadly on the roof and remembered that his past friends were leaving one by one. The protagonist remembered with displeasure that his family members were living in a rented apartment. He himself returned to the dorm where, in his past life, he'd party all day. The main character approached his girlfriend. She was standing with a phone in her hands. Ju looked sternly at her friend and suggested that he stop communicating. The main character looked at his girlfriend with fear. He didn't expect to hear such words from her. Yuan asked the girl with displeasure, "Will she really leave him after 3 years?" The girl angrily asked her friend, "Doesn't he know what feelings they had?" She turned around and walked towards the car. She told the main character not to call her Tin anymore. It all sounded ridiculous to her. She walked up to the car door and prepared to open it. As she said goodbye, she told her friend that it would be better if they never saw each other again. The main character was very upset. He tried not to show his emotions. The girl wanted to open the door and said that a friend would pick her up. The protagonist stopped his girlfriend and pressed his hand to the car door. Joe asked her friend discontentedly what else he wanted. Yuan demanded that the girl return several designer bags she had given him. She angrily told the guy that he had only given her a few ugly bags, and now he wanted them back. Yuan glanced at the girl and said he needed money. He offered to make their old wishes come true. Joe looked sternly at her friend and told him to get lost. The driver from the car told the girl to get in with him. He added that he could give the main character a ride. The protagonist silently noted that the driver called the girl by her first name, Tin. Out loud, he explained that he didn't need a ride and would get there on his own. The driver told the protagonist in a sly voice that the blow of breaking up with his girlfriend would be hard on him. He wanted to make sure Yuan got home in one piece. Yuan closed his eyes and thought that he could hit his partner once. He wanted to stand up for himself. The main character told the driver in the car that his walk home was very close. There was no need to worry about him. Yuan opened the door for his girlfriend. He told the guy that Joe was a good girl and he should take care of her. The driver looked slyly to the side and told his partner that the girl would be in good hands. The protagonist smiled slyly and told his partner that men should give women only the best. He told the driver the details and habits of the Joe. The stranger became very angry because of the main character's words and abruptly left the place. Wen remained standing on the street. He shouted to the stranger that he had missed the most interesting part. The protagonist was completely alone on the city street. He thought to himself that she could have made the right choice. The boy looked up at the sun. He told himself that the girl's decision would lead her to the ideal life. The system told the boy that everyone should strive to live the life they deserve. The protagonist was surprised to see the loading of the ideal life system in front of him. Yuan read detailed information about himself in the system. It contained all the information about him. The guy decided he was hallucinating, on the brink of life and death. The system reported that the loading of the ideal life system was complete. The protagonist received a task. He needed to spend money on a person of the opposite sex of the appropriate age. The girl had to have a certain intimacy rating, and Yuan could only use his own funds. The protagonist decided he was hallucinating. At that moment, someone called him. An assistant named Li Xiao worriedly told the guy not to be upset about the breakup. Li approached the guy from the side and wanted to encourage him with a phrase. Yuan looked at her with interest. The protagonist was surprised to see the girl's attention indicator light up above her head. A message from the system immediately appeared. The guy realized with surprise that the numbers above the girl indicated her proximity. This meant the system was real. Li smiled at her partner and said that it was not the end of the world. The protagonist recognized the professor and told him he was fine. He happily thought to himself that he had a real advantage. Li told the guy that if he sent her the documents, she could help him with a scholarship. The protagonist explained to the girl that it would be better to give the scholarship to someone who needs it more. Li agreed with her partner and said that she would not insist. She looked at the main character and said that he could even ask her questions about love. Li told the main character at parting that she would always be here if he needed anything. The guy thought about it and realized that the assistant was fully compliant with the system's loyalty program. He could have received the full payment for completing the task. Yuan suddenly stretched his hand forward and grabbed the girl to stop her. The guy held the girl's hand and said that he wanted to treat her to milk tea. Lee, frightened, began to refuse. The main character handed the girl a small can of drink. She took it. Lee held the drink in her hands. Frightened, she thanked the protagonist. Yuan looked closely at his phone's personal account. He noticed that he had received money. The protagonist noted with excitement that the girl's affection level remained above 60. He could have spent endless amounts of money on her and made a profit from it. Yuan watched his girlfriend leave. He realized he would have a chance to pay off all his family's debts. As a result, his family could become richer than ever. The main character happily thought to himself that he could become the same as before. The guy glanced at the bill and realized he only had 99 yuan. It was mere pennies. The guy decided he needed to secure a good income and find girlfriends to complete tasks for him. The protagonist looked at his phone and calculated that he should have more than 49,000 yuan in his account. Yuan turned slyly and looked away. He realized that he had to act carefully to give the professor an expensive gift. An hour later, the guy bought an expensive gift and threw the packaging in the trash. The protagonist held an expensive bag from the spring collection in his hands. It cost 39,000 yuan. Yuan walked up to the door and knocked. At the last moment, he remembered that he didn't know if the professor had a boyfriend. Lee opened the door and held a kitchen ladle in her hands. She asked the guy in surprise, "What is he doing here?" The protagonist asked his partner through the door what she was cooking. Or she asked the guest with displeasure what he wanted. Yuan handed the girl a bag and said he wanted her support. It was a sign of gratitude. Leah noted to herself that the bag looked very expensive. She told the protagonist that helping students was her job. The protagonist told the girl that the bag was a fake, costing 200 yuan. He asked her to accept the gift. The owner took the bag in her hands and told the protagonist in a displeased voice that she would definitely repay him on his birthday. The main character felt a pleasant smell of food coming from the girl's apartment. A guy walked into his girlfriend's apartment, and the girl ran to the side and asked the guy on the go if he had eaten. Lee peeked out of the kitchen and told the protagonist to stay for dinner. Yuan thought to himself that as long as the professor didn't object, everything would be fine. He had to maintain the loyalty system to start earning good money. The guy picked up the phone and was surprised to notice that he had received money. The protagonist was overjoyed and imagined himself standing on a rock by the ocean. He earned 80,000 after receiving the gift bag. For him, it was a victory. The hostess was setting the dishes on the table. She invited the protagonist to dinner. He looked up from his phone and asked the girl, "Where's her boyfriend?" The girl looked at the guest with displeasure and said that she didn't have a boyfriend. She then asked the guest to help her with her apron. The main character abruptly slammed his hand on the table and asked the professor how he could help her. The guy approached the frightened girl to help her with her clothes. Wan told the hostess that he would help her and fix everything. He grabbed her apron with his hands. At this time, Li Ming entered the room wearing a red suit and carrying a suitcase. She was Li Xiao's younger sister. The main character shouted in fear to the guest that he and Xiao hadn't done anything like that. The hostess asked the girl why she had arrived so late today. Xiao walked up to her sister and introduced her to the protagonist. The main character waved to the girl and greeted her. She said in a less displeased voice that she wasn't feeling well. The guy suddenly ran to the apartment exit. He told the landlady that he had already eaten dinner at home and wanted to return to the dorm. She looked after the main character and remembered that just a minute ago he was ready to sit down at the table. She told her sister in a less displeased voice that her friend had very bad intentions. Xiao replied to her partner with displeasure that the guy was just a student. Les turned to the side and said in a displeased voice that a normal student would not suck up to a professor like that. The main character was walking down the street. He realized that he could no longer spend money on anyone. Wen suddenly noticed how some passerby passed by him and touched him. The protagonist turned around and recognized the stranger. He asked Lao Huan in fear what had happened to him. Lao frightenedly told the main character that his own fan went to the cinema with the guy Zhanpeng. The protagonist remembered that Fan had been an excellent student since her second year. However, his friend Lao had never even spoken to her. Lao looked at his friend with displeasure and asked why he was laughing at him. He asked, "Did Yuan know which girl he was talking about?" Two female students appeared on the street with drinks in their hands. Huan looked at them with great interest. Lao perked up. He looked at the girl and realized that he still had a chance. The main character looked cheerfully at his friend and realized that he had fallen in love and lost all sense of dignity. Yuan looked closely at the beautiful student and noticed that her sympathy score was 72. This was even higher than Professor Li. The protagonist stood with his frightened friend. She asked the student if Manhwa knew that the protagonist's girlfriend had dumped him. The student turned away with displeasure when she saw a familiar guy. She turned around and looked at the protagonist with displeasure. She reminded the student that she even bought drinks for the main character. The girl told her partner on the fly that rich guys don't understand anything. But the main character, even after his family's bankruptcy, remained an upstart. Wen watched closely as the girl moved away from him. Her sympathy level was getting lower and lower. The protagonist grabbed his friend by the shoulders and asked him excitedly if he would mind if he started dating Fang Minghui. Lao glanced at his friend and said thoughtfully that he didn't mind him dating the girl. He just didn't want Fan to be with Zhang Peng. The main character ran to the side. He shouted to his friend as he ran that he was glad he said that. Yuan ran up to the surprised girl's side and greeted her. The student rushed to her friend's defense and sternly asked the guy what he wanted from her. The protagonist asked Min if she had plans for tomorrow. He invited her to go out for sushi. Min was very surprised that the main character invited her to dinner with him. The student nervously asked the guy if he had money. She reminded him that at a sushi restaurant you'd have to spend at least 1,000 yuan per person. Yuan smiled at the girl and said that he would like to go for a walk with her after dinner. He needed to choose a gift for his sister. The guy stepped aside, waved his hand at the girl and said that they would talk tomorrow. Min told her friend in a puzzled voice that she had just gone to the movies with a guy and would be going to a restaurant with the main character tomorrow. The student replied that there was nothing wrong with that and that the restaurant had good food. A student told her friend that the main character is arrogant and handsome. His family might get rich again. As she was leaving, her friend told her partner that she had nothing to lose from a simple walk and dinner. The next evening, the main character went into a restaurant with his girlfriend. The waitress came and brought the order for the guy and the girl. She put it on the table. Minsila sat at a table near the main character. She said his family was going through hard times and he shouldn't spend so much. She was sitting near the table. He noticed that everything in this place was very tasty. The guy carefully looked at the girl from the side. He carefully studied her pose. She turned around and said to the guy, "Did he really invite her to choose a gift for his sister?" Yuan was drinking a drink from a cup. He told the girl that he wanted to invite her to dinner earlier, but there was no right moment. The protagonist watched his girlfriend closely. He noticed how her affection level began to drop. Yuan looked at the girl and realized that she was unhappy with his answer. The main character reminded the girl of their last trip with a smile. She often bought him things. Min looked at the guy in surprise and asked, "Hasn't he forgotten anything?" Her sympathy level began to rise. The protagonist glanced at the girl from the side and said that he couldn't forget about it. Her sympathy grew. The guy turned away. He told himself that he had to control himself. The waiter brought the bill for the main character and the girl. After the discount, the guy had to pay 2,774 yuan. The customer held his phone to the payment terminal. The surprised girl looked at the guy from the side with surprise. For her, 3,000 was her allowance for the whole month. The protagonist looked closely at his phone. The refund had been credited to his account. The system communicated new tasks to the owner. He needed to spend money on a person of the opposite sex of the appropriate age. The guy turned and looked at the girl. Her affection level increased. The protagonist happily thought that he had earned a couple thousand yuan for dinner. Min looked at her companion with a smile and thought that she liked it more and more. She grabbed the main character by the hand and shouted that they needed to go to the shopping center to choose a gift. A man appeared from the side with his girlfriend. He saw the protagonist from the side and asked his companion what Yuan was doing there. Zhou looked at the protagonist with displeasure. She was surprised that he was already dating a new girl after the breakup. The man was very displeased and surprised that a poor student could spend money in such a place. The man remembered that he needed to earn money and buy a lot of things to attract the girl's attention. The main character turned around and suggested that his girlfriend talk about something else. The stranger slyly invited the protagonist to walk through the shopping center together and look at the display window. Zhou asked her former friend discontentedly, "What is he doing here? And who is that girl next to him?" The main character told his partners that he came with his girlfriend to get a gift for his sister. The man slyly advised the boy to go to the market and pick out a toy for himself. He wouldn't be able to afford much there. Zhou walked slowly up to the student to tell her something. Zhu looked sternly at the girl and said that the main character might be fooling her. The main character approached and asked his partner with displeasure, was he really fooling her? The man reminded the protagonist that Zhou was his ex-girlfriend. He explained to the boy that no one laughs at his family's poverty. The main character looked at the girl and the man with displeasure and thought that they really deserved each other. The system reminded the owner of a new task. The guy was supposed to spend money on a girl with an affection level above 60. As a result, the other people's negative emotions should increase. The protagonist thought that he would not refuse the system's task. Yuan led his girlfriend by the hand. He suggested that the two partners go for a walk. The two saleswomen behind the counter recognized the main character. They couldn't decide who would serve him. The worker looked at the saleswoman with displeasure and demanded that she quickly approach the guy. Zhuo was holding an expensive handbag. She asked the guy if he could buy it. The saleswoman prepared to step aside and said with a smile to her boss that she would, of course, approach the guy. The workers approached the client from all sides and began offering her various things. One of the saleswomen opened the box and offered to buy 2 beautiful teddy bears for the customer. Each one cost 100,000 yuan. The protagonist turned around and told his girlfriend not to worry about him and the money. She could choose her own purchases. Min pointed to the things with her hand and said that his sister would like them. The saleswoman calculated and informed the customers that the total cost for them would be 50,000 yuan. The man was very surprised that his girlfriend chose a set for herself that cost 100,000. She approached the man and demanded that he pay. She reminded him that the protagonist had been following them. The stranger thought with displeasure that he didn't have much money on his card. When he approached the saleswoman and said that he would take 2 bags and accessories, Joe and the man were very unpleasantly surprised when they realized that the main character could spend a lot of money. Min looked at her friend in surprise. She couldn't understand where he got the money from. The dissatisfied saleswoman couldn't believe the guy was willing to buy accessories. She didn't understand where the client got the money from. The saleswoman told the customer he had to pay 131,000 yuan for everything. The guy remembered he had the same amount left on his card after dinner. The main character handed the saleswoman a card and said that he would pay everything now. The surprised saleswoman took the card in her hands and told the client with excitement that she would now prepare everything. Joe asked the main character discontentedly, "Where did he get the money?" The man asked the guy, "Did he really take out a loan?" The protagonist angrily replied to the stranger that he could think whatever he wanted. He asked the man why he hadn't bought his girlfriend a 20,000 ruble bag. The man listened to the protagonist with displeasure. The guy told him that a man should be generous. She turned around and demanded that the man stop talking to the protagonist like that. The client remembered that he had bought his car on credit and couldn't tell the girl about it. The man grabbed the phone and shouted at the girl that he had to answer the call. She asked Hojung, displeased, how could he do this? Hu stepped aside and talked with his partner about an expensive project. Joe told herself that the main character can take care of himself. The protagonist glanced sideways at the girl and saw that the negativity had decreased. The guy decided to himself that he had completed the task. The protagonist handed the girl a shopping bag. Min replied that all of this would be very expensive for her. The protagonist told the girl that the shopping would be for her as an apology. She had to endure a lot of unpleasant conversations. The companion took the bag and thanked the guy. Yuan handed his companion a few more bags of goods. Min asked the guy in surprise what he would give his sister. The protagonist told the girl with a smile that she would definitely like the gift. The guy thought to himself that if he gave such an expensive gift to his sister, she would scold him for wasting money. Yuan stood next to his girlfriend. He decided that she might think that he was a very greedy person. The girl was holding bags in her hands. She kept telling the guy that she couldn't take such purchases. The main character extended both hands forward and grabbed his girlfriend with them. The main character smiled at the girl and asked her to take the gift so as not to offend him. Yuan stood next to his girlfriend. The system congratulated the owner for completing the most difficult task. He received additional points and increased the amount spent. The main character looked at the girl, Min, and realized that he had to take care of her and could not allow her level of sympathy to fall. Yuan glanced at the girl and suggested that she go home. The guy thought to himself that he shouldn't force his girlfriend. Min glanced slyly at the main character and thought that he was not like other guys. He didn't even offer to go to a hotel. A group of students were descending the stairs. One guy told his friends that the main character was different from Li Jianping. He didn't even invite the girl to the hotel afterwards. The students were having fun. One guy told his friend that he should treat them all to dinner at an expensive restaurant. Yuan walked in front and listened attentively to everything. The guy approached the door of his student room. He listened to other students talking about plans to throw a party. The guy in the chair shouted angrily at the main character, saying that he was bragging to everyone because he had watched the film With My Girlfriend Min. The protagonist put his hand on his neighbor's shoulder and said that Li's days of glory were numbered. He would no longer meet with Min. The student turned around and told the protagonist, with a disgruntled expression, that he and Min had gone to the movies together the previous day. No one knows exactly what happened between them. The student told the protagonist that the girl hadn't yet agreed to go on a date with him today. This meant she was with Li. The protagonist picked up his phone and checked his balance. He had a large sum in his account. The guy decided to go home. Uncle Shen sat in a chair. He joyfully welcomed the protagonist into his home. The main character entered the room and greeted his uncle. There were other people sitting around the table. A young man sat in a chair and asked his uncle to wait with the payment. The protagonist stood near the door and listened attentively to the conversation. The owner on the sofa looked at the guy with displeasure and said that he needed full payment to cover all his expenses. The woman angrily reminded the owner that they gave him money when he wanted to open a car wash. They gave him 300,000 yuan. Now, he'd returned 200,000 in one go. The guy told the woman that men can have their own difficulties. The partner said in a disgruntled voice that Shen's wife had said that they didn't have anything urgent right now that needed paying. The man angrily explained to his partners that paying off debts was natural. He reminded the guests that they were his family. The woman pointed her finger angrily at the man and said that the Shen family was ungrateful. The guy told the woman she should sell her gold jewelry. When they had money, they could buy new jewelry. The woman responded with displeasure that they needed to deal with their debts now. The system informed the protagonist that he must pay off his family debts. Yuan thought to himself that the task had come at just the right time. The guy happily thought to himself that he would have helped the family with their debts even without the assignment. The woman brought the guy a box of jewelry. She said they were worth several thousand. They could be donated. The woman said she lost 2 gold rings due to a move. The protagonist recalled that he had taken his mother's rings while in college. Yuan suddenly walked into the room and told his parents that he had money. The man in glasses told his son with displeasure that now was not the time for jokes. The protagonist calmly explained to his parents that he did indeed have the money. He wanted to show them the transfer. The man and woman were very surprised when they saw 200,000 yuan on the guy's phone. The father asked his son, "Where did he get that money?" The protagonist told his parents that he had invested money in cryptocurrency. He recently cashed it out. The woman, holding a box, told her son that he had helped them out. The man told his wife that they needed to pay off the debt first and get rid of this problem. The man, holding a phone in his hand, told his uncle with displeasure that they would pay him back. The woman, displeased, demanded that the Shen leave them quickly. The uncle held the phone in his hand and looked at his daughter-in-law with displeasure and distrust. The hostess looked angrily at the man and told him to run away quickly. Uncle Shen jumped out very abruptly and ran out of the house through the door onto the street. Shen couldn't understand how his brother had managed to pay off a debt of several million so quickly. He thought with displeasure that his related family had once again opened a new business with a good profit and would prosper. The man stood on the street and thought with displeasure that he shouldn't have come. The system informed the owner that he had completed the debt repayment task. The protagonist looked at the remaining balance on his phone. His earnings had exceeded 1 million. Yuan thoughtfully calculated to himself that it was still a long way to fully pay off the debt. The protagonist thought that all his money wouldn't be enough to pay his father's debt. He could have used the money to earn even more. He gave his parents 200,000. The main character told his parents that he could give them 200,000 from the account. The mother worriedly told the boy that the rest of the money could be left alone for now. The husband told the woman to wait. The man asked the main character to give him 50,000 yuan. Yuan looked happily at his father and told him cheerfully that he recognized him. The main character remembered that his father behaved exactly the same way as he did when he asked for money. The boy was walking down the stairs and noticed that the teacher was coming up to him. Lee, in a tracksuit, told the main character that there were no classes after lunch today. The guy told the girl that he wanted to invite her to dinner. He wanted to thank her for her previous invitation. The girl suddenly noticed someone approaching behind her and flashing their eyes. The main character noticed with fear how Mei approached him. The girl was very unhappy. He thought with displeasure that the professor's sister was his sworn enemy. The two sisters stood silently next to each other. The protagonist thought that he shouldn't mess with them. The guy ran off to the side. He shouted to the professor that he had some business to attend to at college. He suggested that she postpone dinner and said goodbye. In a less displeased voice, she reminded her sister that she had already told her that the main character had bad intentions. Lee calmly replied to her partner that the guy had invited her to a regular dinner. The main character was walking down the street and felt that he was suffering from the heat. Wen recalled his trips in an air-conditioned car with his girlfriend. Even the memory of that relaxed him greatly. The guy looked at his phone and decided to use his stash to buy a car. He wanted to take advantage of a gift from the system. He messaged the girl and invited her to go for an evening walk. Min agreed. Min was choosing clothes for herself. She came up to her from behind and slyly told the girl that she wasn't going to go back to the dorm with her boyfriend that day. Min turned around and excitedly explained to her partner that she wasn't dating the guy yet. The girl said that Min had found herself a rich and capable guy. Min felt very scared and embarrassed. An hour later, the protagonist was at the car dealership with his girlfriend. The salesman greeted the guests and asked what model of car they were interested in. The manager saw a familiar girl and asked excitedly what she was doing there. Min turned around in surprise, dissatisfied, when she saw Chin next to her. The girl remembered that this guy had chased her in high school. Chin approached his ex-girlfriend and asked who the guy standing next to her was. Yuan turned around and explained to the seller that he was the girl's classmate. The salesman turned around and asked the guests what model of car they were interested in. Yuan replied that he would look at model number 9. Quinn told customers they could even sit inside the car and try it out. The salesman silently thought with displeasure that the protagonist had no money. The salesman glanced at the girl from the side. He thought dreamily that she was very beautiful. Qin imagined how he would have an expensive car and a bunch of beautiful girlfriends. The guy approached the girl and asked her to meet up and chat that evening. Min modestly replied to her partner that she already had plans for the evening. Yuan got into the car and asked the seller, "Can I arrange a test drive?" Qin was unhappy that the client wanted to test drive the car. He decided the guy wouldn't be able to buy it anyway. He told the guy out loud that his boss had taken the test car. Yuan looked at the seller with a displeased look. He didn't like that he refused to do a test drive. The main character approached the receptionist at the store and said that he needed a different salesperson and wanted to take her for a test drive. The worker looked attentively at the main character and greeted him. The girl said her name was Chen. She asked the guests how she could help them. The main character was surprised when he saw the worker. He didn't even have time to say anything to her. The boss asked the employee why he had given his client to Chen. Chin told his partner that he didn't want to waste his time on a student who wanted to test drive the M9. The boss told the guy that the client could actually buy an expensive car. Chin explained to the manager that an ordinary poor guy brought a beautiful girl here just to show off in front of her. Chen was sitting inside the car with the main character. She was telling him about the smart driving feature. The protagonist glanced briefly at the worker. He assessed her appearance and figure. The worker asked him what his approximate budget would be. Yuan answered the girl that he would like to pick up one car today. The girl was surprised that the client wanted to buy the car after just one test drive. She couldn't understand why Qin Yang had backed out of the deal. The worker told the protagonist that they didn't have any available units of that model, but they could assign another car here in a week. Yuan told his partner that they would process the order that very day. Chen looked at the guy in surprise. She was shocked because he was buying a car for 600,000 yuan. Out loud, she told the client that the down payment was 500,000 yuan. She promised to bring the contract. Chen looked at his colleague walking by and asked what her client had decided. Chen was filling out the paperwork. She told her colleague that the main character was buying a car. Chen jumped up and said that the main character would apologize and disappear after the first payment. Another worker said he had extensive experience working in car dealerships and hadn't met more ordinary customers in a long time. Chen was sitting in a chair near the desk. She told her colleagues that the client wanted to pay in cash right away. The workers were very angry because they lost such a good and profitable deal. The girl bowed to the main character and asked, "Does he need a lift?" Min took the main character by the arms and answered the worker that they would take a taxi. She thought to herself with displeasure that she had gotten distracted and angered the client's girlfriend. Out loud, she told the protagonist that she would not accompany them. Yuan held the phone in his hand. He immediately suggested to his girlfriend that they leave. The main character turned around and asked the girl why she was upset. Yuan looked at his girlfriend and said that his relationship with the saleswoman was purely business. Min said to her friend with displeasure that he had been sitting in the car for a long time with the worker and chatting. He told his girlfriend that this is a common habit of his. He thinks about something when he talks to someone. Min sternly asked the guy not to do this again next time. The girl thought with displeasure that she still wasn't dating the main character, but felt a twinge of jealousy. She decided to lock the guy away. Yuan suggested to his girlfriend that they first have something to eat and then go to the shopping center to buy a gift. Min turned around and reminded her companion that he had bought 2 bags for her last night. He explained to the girl that she could have several different bags for each day of the week. Yuan remembered that spending money on girls pays for itself threefold. Ultimately, he will earn more and more. The main character handed the girl a menu in a restaurant. He asked what she wanted to drink. Min was scared because the guy asked her about a drink. She replied that she wanted something cold. The protagonist noticed that the girl's expression had changed. He decided that he needed to make the situation even more tense. Yuan was walking down the street with his girlfriend. He bought her various things. Min turned around and silently looked at the main character. She calculated that the guy had spent 140,000 on her in 2 days. He looked closely at his phone and studied the receipts in his account. Yuan realized he still had 1,600,000 yuan left in his account. He turned around and told the girl that she didn't have to return to the dorm today. Min thought for a moment and then fell silent. She didn't answer. He came home with his girlfriend and immediately went to the shower. I spent a few minutes chatting with my friend on the phone and lying on the bed. After taking a shower, he came up to her and asked if she was ready. She looked at him in surprise. The girl lay and silently looked at her friend. She mentally asked her friend Ling Ling for forgiveness. The guy calmly answered her that he liked her smell. After a while, they lay in silence. Min thought to herself that all this was not so scary. He opened his eyes and thought that his girlfriend was doing very well. He felt very exhausted. The girl put her hand on the main character and invited him to do it again. Wen looked slyly at his girlfriend and suggested that she take a little rest. Min looked slyly at her friend and said what she wants now. The next morning, the protagonist was in the dorm. He was standing near the table and looking at his phone. The guy thought to himself that he needed to pay off his debts. The guy glanced at his phone in surprise and realized he still owed Li Yuhan money. He'd borrowed money from him after his family's bankruptcy. The student angrily asked the protagonist where he had been hanging out last night. He informed him that they would be having a faculty party that evening. The student held the phone in his hands. He told his friend that the guy had bought a car and asked him to organize a party. If he went to the banquet, it would only be for a personal show. The protagonist turned around and explained to his partner that he wouldn't be going to the banquet. He received a message on his phone about dinner that evening. The system informed the client of a new task. He must gain the admiration of the opposite sex and build a good foundation for business. Yuan happily thought to himself that he could invest money in Li Yuhan's bar and have some fun. Yuan sat near the table with his phone. He texted the student that he would come over today to have fun with them. Li Guanyao was sitting on the couch with his girlfriend. He told his friend Li Xiao with displeasure that he was dying of hunger and asked who they were waiting for. Zi told his friends that all the major bros were supposed to be there. A student named Zhao happily said that important people are never late. Li approached from the side with a glass of wine in his hands. He told his friends that there were fruits and snacks on the table. The protagonist was supposed to be there soon. The guest explained to his friend that the protagonist was bankrupt and should not have been invited. Li explained to his friend that he would pay the bill today and that he shouldn't worry. He called the protagonist his friend for life. The student said they would wait, if Li Xiao said so. The girl told her friend in a displeased voice that he did not agree to be her boyfriend, but continued to hug her. The guy asked his friend, "Where is his girlfriend?" He explained to his friends that she was stuck on the subway. She promised to arrive in 10 minutes. Lee thought to himself with displeasure that his family had always depended on his family. The protagonist would not have been able to even attend this meeting without him. The student couldn't understand where the main character got such a gorgeous girl from. Yuan entered the room and greeted his friends. He apologized for being late. The student asked his friend, why was he late? The protagonist explained to his partner that he was delayed due to traffic jams. The taxi driver decided to avoid the congested areas. Lee advised his friend to complain about the driver. The student thought angrily to himself that the protagonist had arrived by taxi. Out loud, he told the guests that everyone here had arrived in their own cars. The girl arrived. She came into the room and apologized for being late. C waved to his girlfriend Chen Na and greeted her joyfully. He noticed with surprise that in front of him was Mr. Shen, who had bought a car yesterday. The guest glanced sideways at the protagonist and noticed he hadn't even said hello. She decided to pretend they weren't acquainted. The girl walked past the table abruptly and extended her hand to the guy. Lee raised a glass of drink. He asked his friends if any of them would like to invest and develop the business together. He explained that the remaining investment would be approximately 700,000 yuan. The guy shyly asked the guests what they thought about all this. The people at the table fell silent. One of the guests, glass in hand, wondered if the family was making tens of millions. It was unlikely the guy would need 700,000. It could be that their previous businesses had failed. Zhao silently thought to himself that he hadn't come here to invest. Z thought for a moment and calculated that it would take him 2 years to save up 700,000. The guests all sat silently around the table. One of them thought that whoever spoke first would turn out to be a fool. Lee stood silently and looked at his acquaintances. He always paid their bills. Friends also borrowed money from him. Now, no one wanted to help the protagonist financially. He was holding a glass in his hand. He asked his partners why none of them were saying anything. One of the guys said there was no need for investment right now. They could all chip in and invest a few thousand in the bar. Will they get their money back after it makes money? C told his friend that if they ran the business half and half, it would be dishonest. Lee would only make money and lose nothing. Zhao silently and discontentedly thought that his friend was trying to beg for money for nothing. One of the guests angrily thought that maybe he could have borrowed the money and not dragged them all into this. Lee was very disappointed. He realized that he wouldn't be able to collaborate and do business with his friends. He clearly explained to them about investing and doing business together. The guy put the glass on the table. He told his friends that if no one was interested in his proposal, they couldn't forget about it. The guest joyfully raised his glass in front of him and told his friends there was no point in chatting about investments. He suggested they just drink and have fun. The protagonist remembered the faces of his friends. When his family went bankrupt, his acquaintances turned out to be ordinary parasites who spent their parents' money. As he said goodbye, he told his friends that he was leaving and they could have fun. The main character told his friend that he could invest 700,000 in him. Lee stopped abruptly and looked at his friend. The other guests fell silent. One of the guests shouted angrily at the main character that they had known him for more than one day. Zhao put his hand on the protagonist's shoulder and told him to step away and cool his head. Li Xiao won't listen to his nonsense. C turned around and told the protagonist that he was older and had more experience. He advised Yuan to do things only within his capabilities. One of the guests smiled slyly at the main character and said that he could pay for his taxi fare. Chen sat alone on the sofa. She remembered that the main character had bought a car for 600,000 yuan yesterday. He could have invested the money in his friend's business. The girl thought she wanted to help the protagonist. She decided it would be strange to just interfere and protect him. Yuan pressed a few buttons on his phone and told his friend that he had already transferred the money to him. Lee was very surprised. He looked at his phone with great attention. Lee handed his friend the phone and showed it to him. The guest asked his friend what had happened. The student stared at his phone in surprise. He couldn't understand why there were so many zeros in the main character's translation. He counted and confirmed that it was actually 700,000. Chen looked to the side in surprise. She noted that in a second, everything around her had changed a lot. The student jumped to his feet. He anxiously asked his friend what he had seen on his phone. The guest, confused, told his partner that he had urgent business at home and was leaving. C, standing on his feet, asked his friend what had happened. His partner told the guy that it was time for him to go home too. His aunt and uncle were looking for him. He didn't understand his friend's words. He said with bewilderment that his relatives hadn't even called him. The guy stopped angrily and glanced at the protagonist. He didn't understand why Yuan, with so much money, was taking a taxi. Zhao walked up to his friend and said he wanted to look at his phone. Suddenly, Zhao ran to the door and opened it. He shouted to his friends that he had things to do and needed to leave. All the guests began to quickly get up from the table and prepared to leave. He was sitting next to the girl. He didn't understand why everyone was leaving. Chen answered her companion that it was time for them to leave too. The man ran after the girl. He told her angrily that she hadn't even seen what was written in the translation. Chen explained to her partner that the main character had bought a car from her yesterday. He paid in cash. He was very surprised. He shouted at the girl that she was joking. She took his hand and said that she had a copy of the contract with the guy stored on her phone. The man looked at the girl with fear. He told her that she could have immediately told everyone that the guy was rich. She walked away very displeased. She shouted goodbye to the man that today she realized what kind of person he was. She didn't want to see him anymore. A friend ran up to the protagonist and said that if he had known how rich he was, he wouldn't have organized the party. Yuan poured himself a drink. He explained to Lee that his friends couldn't be trusted. The protagonist asked his friend to tell him about the bar. He put his hand on his partner's shoulder and said that he would now tell him about the plan. The protagonist and his friend were discussing the bar's layout and internal workings. Lee praised his partner for his skill and business vision. Yuan stretched tiredly and told his friend that they needed to hire a manager. An hour later, the girl was messaging the main character on her phone. Yuan suggested meeting the next evening. He wanted to discuss cars. Chen looked at the messages and didn't understand what was happening. Yuan glanced at his phone and realized he only had a min as a money tree. As a result, his cashback was limited. He decided to make the most of the program. The guy decided to try spending money on Chen. The next evening, the girl was sitting alone in a cafe. She was waiting for the main character. She thought to herself with great displeasure that the guy hadn't arrived yet. She decided that she had arrived very early. A man walked into the restaurant. He couldn't understand why a girl in a work uniform was sitting there. He happily decided that now was the best time to approach her. The salon's general manager, Leng Xianyun, told his subordinates to go and get a bite to eat somewhere. He had things to do. The workers went into the next room. They were discussing and wondering if laziness would be able to meet Chen. The employee told his colleague that no girl would come here to have lunch alone. The employee told his friend that Chen had come there specifically so the manager could see her. C overheard the conversation and was surprised because Chen had a meeting there. A man approached the girl's table and asked her permission to sit down. The employee told the boss that she was already in that place. Laziness was dissatisfied with the girl's behavior. He suggested out loud that the three of them eat together. She reminded the man in a very displeased voice that he already had a family. She asked him to keep his distance. Len sat down next to the girl. He told her with a smile that family was not a problem and that she could decide on a divorce. C was very angry and ran around the room. He didn't like that his girlfriend had left him for another man. He remembered that he earned 500,000 yen every year. He had a car worth 300,000. The man ran up to the glass and watched the girl carefully. She was sitting at a table next to her boss. He ran inside and pointed angrily at the man and the girl. He shouted that they were playing with Roman behind his back. Very displeased, I asked my colleague what he was talking about. I sternly asked the employee who he was. He got angry and hit the boss with all his strength. He asked him in an angry voice, "Who is he?" Laziness grabbed the offender by the clothes with his hand. He angrily asked him where the guy with the fist had come from. A frightened waitress stood in the room. The protagonist watched the fight between the men in surprise. He couldn't understand where she had come from. The protagonist watched the fight in the restaurant through the glass. He realized that instead of the fat man, it could have been himself. Yuan approached the girl and grabbed her hand. He wanted to take her away. The main character took the girl by the hand and suggested that they leave this place as soon as possible. Cher was driving a car and told the main character that she had only been dating her for 2 weeks and then dumped him. The guy told the girl that she shouldn't have any problems now. Chen angrily told the protagonist that her boss had been hit at the restaurant. Now she doesn't know what to expect from her boss? Yuan suggested his partner change jobs. The girl told the protagonist that it's very difficult to find a new job right now. If she moves to a new car dealership, she'll lose her client base. Chen looked out the car window at a large shopping center. The girl told the protagonist that sales work was exhausting her. She would need 300 to 400,000 yen to open a cafe. She wouldn't be able to save that amount. The protagonist turned around and told his girlfriend that he was offering her an investment. He remembered that he still had 300,000 left. The girl extended her hand to the main character and said in a confident voice that she would work for the investor. Yuan turned around and assured his partner that he would invest 300,000 in opening her cafe. She would work for him. The girl extended her hand and wanted to tap the guy on the leg. The driver's sympathy increased. She asked the protagonist in surprise, "What did he tell her?" Yuan thought to himself that he wouldn't get any sympathy from his girlfriend, but she would be a lucky money tree for him. The girl looked at the main character with distrust and asked, "Did he really say all this seriously?" Yuan explained to his partner that he was completely serious. He asked if she wanted to work for him. He promised to pay her 12,000 yuan every month. In the future, the guy said he gave the girl a car worth 200,000. Chen looked at the guy with disbelief. She couldn't believe he was telling her she'd get a new car in 3 months and an annual salary of 300,000. The girl decided that the protagonist wanted to imprison her in a golden cage. He would keep her for himself. Chen turned around and told the guy that he shouldn't do all this for her. She silently decided that she would be a rival for the main character's girlfriend. Yuan calmly explained to his partner that he was simply planning to open a cafe. He promised that their relationship would be strictly business. The girl behind the wheel thoughtfully promised her friend that she would think about it. The protagonist noticed a message on his phone. The girl invited him to go for a walk. The main character drove up to the hotel and went up to the room where she was. Min ran up to the guy and hugged him. She said she missed him a lot. The main character replied to his girlfriend that he missed him too. She suspiciously asked the main character why he smelled of women's perfume. The boy sniffed himself in fear. He remembered that he had just been riding in a car next to Chen. She pushed the guy aside in displeasure and shouted that he was dating someone behind her back. The protagonist promised the girl that she was his only one. He told her that he had been to the dealership that day to buy a car, and that's where he caught the scent of women's perfume. Min looked at her friend with displeasure and demanded that he keep his distance from the various consultants in the salon. The protagonist thought happily about you, that he should spend as much money as possible on girls. He'll get it back, so there's no need to limit himself to just the money tree. She told the main character that she would go to the shower first. Yuan was very surprised. He came closer. She told him that she needed to move away and take off her outerwear. After a couple of hours, he wanted to leave the room. He felt exhausted. Min was still lying on the bed. The girl's sympathy level suddenly jumped to 90 points. Yuan turned and looked at her attentively. The system informed the owner that he had completed the task to increase his sympathy. The boy received various rewards. The protagonist happily realized that with a $1,000,000 ticket, he could earn even more money. He stopped in the room and looked ahead. He thought that now he would have the girl under control. Yin stood near the system window and carefully studied the new skills. The protagonist glanced happily at his body. He felt a surge of energy. He enjoyed the new rewards and the increased levels of affection and intimacy. Wen thought about it and realized that the system gave him rewards depending on what he needed. The guy remembered that she, Chen, with her long legs, had also managed to surpass the 60-point sympathy mark. He decided to move forward step by step. Yuan decided to test out the system's new skill right now. The main character approached his girlfriend on the bed. Min asked his friend, didn't he really want to take a shower now? Yuan looked slyly at his girlfriend and said that he had changed his mind. Chen was lying on the bed and called her friend Qian. She told her that she had been offered an investment of 300,000 yuan and then a car for 200,000. Chen answered her partner on the phone so that Ta wouldn't tell her about the scammers. Chen told his friend that she had seen the guy several times and that the last time he bought a car from them. She told the girl on the phone that the customers at their dealership were mostly middle-aged. Chen explained to her partner that the guy was only 21 years old. Chen sat on the bed and painted her nails. She asked her friend with interest if her client was handsome. A female worker told her co-worker over the phone that a guy was handsome. Chen told her friend over the phone that a young, handsome, and rich guy was her dream. Chen went to the window. She told her friend that the guy was 5 years younger than her. Her partner told the girl that the guy's age was not a problem. Chen thoughtfully told her partner on the phone that the main character had a girlfriend. She replied that Chen could easily steal the guy from his girlfriend. She asked her friend very angrily and displeasedly, "What is she talking about?" Chen cheerfully replied to the girl that she could hand over her rich boyfriend to her. Chen told her partner that her boyfriend had returned and they would talk later. The girl stood near the window and looked out. She imagined the image of the main character. She was lying on the bed next to the main character. She told him that this time he was different. Yuan asked the girl, "Was he stronger?" Min looked at the guy with fear and didn't know what to answer. She held out her hands with the blanket. The main character hugged his girlfriend. He told her that they could try again. The girl jumped up in surprise and asked if he had any strength. The protagonist looked at his girlfriend and slyly suggested that she take the initiative. He reminded her that she had gone dancing. Min looked at her friend in fear and replied that she didn't know what to do. The protagonist smiled slyly at the girl and said that ignorance was no excuse. He explained that she would learn everything through practice. Yuan hugged her. She said quietly to herself that the guy was incredible. Min was sitting on the bed with the main character. She felt a strange feeling. The main character was lying on a large bed in the morning. He decided not to get up and sleep a little. The guy jumped up abruptly and grabbed the phone. He reminded himself that he needed to check the lottery ticket from the system. Yuan looked closely at the lottery ticket and compared the numbers with the phone numbers. The protagonist was overjoyed. He told himself he'd won the 6 million jackpot. Yuan immediately decided to tell his family the news. Yuan ran home happily. He shouted to his mother that he had arrived. The woman went into the room and told the boy to be quiet. He might scare the neighbors. Yuan demanded that his mother call his father. He wanted to tell them something important. The father asked the main character with displeasure what important thing he wanted to tell them. The joyful protagonist showed his parents a lottery ticket and said that he had won 6 million. The mother incredulously asked the boy how difficult the program at college was. The father advised him to focus on his studies. He himself was ready to cope with the family debt. Yuan held a lottery ticket in his hands. He told his father to think carefully before saying such a thing. The man looked at the winning lottery numbers in fear and shouted to his wife that they had the jackpot. The woman was very surprised. The man shouted joyfully and fearfully that they really had more than 6 million. The protagonist told his parents that after taxes they would receive $5 million, they would be able to pay off their debts and live better than before. The delighted woman told the guy that today they would go and celebrate at the Jackpot restaurant. The main character answered his mother that he wanted to open his own business to gain experience. The father told the boy that starting a business wouldn't be easy. He suggested his son put some money aside for future expenses. The main character told his parents that he would only take $1 million and they would take the rest for themselves. The father was sitting on the sofa. He answered his son that everything was decided. The mother told the boy that they would support him. The director sat lazily in his chair. He told the girl in a disgruntled voice that her boyfriend had beaten him. Chen replied to her boss that she had already broken off all relations with her long ago. Laziness told his subordinate that she was to blame for the fact that her friend beat him up for no reason. The man thought to himself that he had to win the girl over. Chen answered her boss with displeasure that the fight had nothing to do with her. Lenya looked angrily at his subordinate and said he was suspending her from sales duties for a month. He accused the girl of leaving her post the previous afternoon and leaving customers unattended in the sales area. She explained to her boss in a very frightened voice that she had asked for time off yesterday. Laziness laughed evilly and told the girl that he was in charge and he would decide everything. Chen glared at her boss. The man thought slyly and realized that without commission from clients, the girl would live on 1,200 won a month. That money wouldn't even be enough for rent. The girl angrily told her boss that she was even ready to quit. The man from behind shouted at the girl to think before leaving. The girl walked toward the office exit. She thought the protagonist was behaving decently, unlike the others. She decided that working for the guy would be a good opportunity. Chen said goodbye to her boss in a stern voice that she was leaving. The protagonist was walking down the street and texting a girl. She texted him that she was ready to quit her job. The guy happily thought that he no longer had to look for another way to invest the remaining 300,000 from the system. The main character opened the door and entered the teacher's apartment. The girl was unloading large boxes. She explained to the guy that she was moving to another office. She couldn't handle it herself, so she turned to a worker, but he turned out to be on vacation. The protagonist pointed to the closet and told the girl that he had no classes that morning anyway, so he was completely free. He asked the girl if all this needed to be moved. Lai explained to the guy with a smile that there was still a table and a whole closet next to her. This was very difficult for her. The girl approached the closet. She told the guy that first the books needed to be moved further away so they wouldn't fall out while being carried. The girl strained with all her might to reach the top shelves with her hand. The main character walked up to the girl and extended his hand to the top shelf with books. Yan stood next to the professor and told her that he would help her. The main character was next to a girl. She noticed his closeness and became very embarrassed. Li thought to herself with fear that now she and the guy were much closer than last time. She decided that Yuan had feelings for her. The girl turned around and shyly asked the guy if he had finished with the books. Yuan reached forward and picked up the book. He told the girl that he had already finished. Several students ran into the office. They shouted to the professor that they wanted to help her. The students looked at the girl in fear. They couldn't understand why her face was so red. Yuan told the students that they needed to move all their things to the next office. The guys came over and said they would do everything. Li thought to herself with displeasure that it was a good thing the students were late. She would have been embarrassed if they had seen her with the main character. She thought to herself that Yuan was becoming more and more bold. The girl turned and looked at the guy, not understanding why all this had upset her. She reminded herself that Yuan was her student. The protagonist was surprised to notice that the professor's affection level had jumped to 71. He decided that the girl's feelings had awakened. Yuan thought and decided to himself that he could visit the professor more often in this place to strengthen their bond. On Saturday, a guy and some girls were sitting near the main entrance of the restaurant. She happily told the guy Li that he bought a car for 280,000 yuan in cash. Another student happily told the guy that he hadn't even received his diploma yet, but he could already enter. The student was delighted. He thought there were a lot of girls lining up behind him. He told his classmates out loud that some people don't care about a bachelor's degree. She was surprised that the guy didn't care. She didn't understand what kind of family he was from. Li was drinking a drink. He looked to the side and saw some girl there. He looked at her carefully. The student looked at the girl next to him and found her very beautiful. He was ready to give 10 years of his life for such beauty. The girls from the restaurant looked with interest at the car on the street. Someone said that the car could be self-driving. Li told them that there was a flagship M9 model car parked in front of them on the street. The main character approached the car and prepared to get inside. A girl from the restaurant balcony shouted in surprise that she saw Yuan in front of her. Li looked down and thought with concern that the car couldn't belong to the protagonist. His family was bankrupt. Chen waved at the table to the main character and said that she was waiting for him there. Yuan waved back. Li watched all this from the side. The student on the side was very unpleasantly surprised when he realized that the beautiful girl was waiting for the main character. Chen told the guy that the cafe owner would be here any minute. She asked him how he liked driving the new car. Yuan picked up a glass of drink. He told the girl that the car seemed pretty good to him. She quietly told the guy that the main character's group was acting strange. Lee thought with displeasure that Yuan had just broken up with his girlfriend and had already met a beauty outside of school. The cafe owner approached the table with the guy and put her hand on the table. The cafe owner, whose name was Lin, greeted the girl. She explained that she was late because she had to pick up her son. Lin extended her hand to the protagonist and said that he looked very young. Yuan invited his partner to sit down and talk. The owner told her partners in an honest voice that business at the cafe wasn't going well. The establishment was located near a college, so there was an influx of customers. She was willing to sell the cafe for 300,000 yuan. The guy remembered that he needed to leave 50,000 yuan for the girl's salary. He told the owner out loud that he was ready to pay her 250,000. Lin decided to agree to the buyer's terms. She suggested that the guy draw up a sales contract that very day. Yuan told the owner that he would transfer the money to her that day after they signed the contract. Lin asked the waitress Xiao Qiu to show the new owner how the cafe was set up. Qiu approached and bowed to the protagonist. She greeted him politely. The main character demanded that the waitress show him all the work for his girlfriend. Chen will be in charge of business management. The girls at the table were chatting. One of them was very surprised that the main character had closed a deal worth 250,000 yuan in just a couple of minutes. The student admiringly told her partner that the guy had come there to meet his beautiful girlfriend. Lee sat at the table and felt very dissatisfied. He watched the main character from the side. Chen looked at the table and noticed how the mobile phone started ringing. Lin got up from the table. She told her partners that she needed to step away for a minute. Chen told the protagonist with amazement that the cafe owner was the wife of her boss, Len, at the car dealership. Lin was standing to the side at the time, talking on the phone. The main character turned sharply to his girlfriend and said that it was all a big coincidence. Yuan thought discontentedly to himself that laziness has a beautiful wife at home. But he still flirts with other employees. Chen explained to the guy that she still has messages on her phone about boss stalking and threatening her. The girl offered to show all this correspondence to Miss Ling. The main character calmly answered the girl that all this would not be appropriate. Yuan explained to his partner that once the evidence came to light, the man would immediately understand who had leaked it to him. He promised the girl that he would deal with it himself. Chen looked at the main character with a smile and joy and thanked him. Yuan held the phone in his hands. He told the girl that he had transferred about 250,000 yuan to the cafe owner. 24,000 would be her salary for 2 months. The rest would serve as startup capital for the business. The system informed the owner that his investment level had increased. The boy received an additional reward for participating in the quest. He could gain a mysterious ability. Yuan was delighted to himself that he had received 10 million yuan for investment. He also received a secret skill, which he was eager to discover. Lin approached the guy and extended her hand. She informed him that she had already received payment. The woman added that she hoped to see him soon. Yuan was surprised to notice that the cafe owner's hand was very soft. He shook it goodbye. The main character imagined how he would hug the owner of the line. Yuan stood near the table. He promised Lin that they would definitely see each other again. Chen was sitting at a table across from the main character. She asked him if he often went to this expensive restaurant. Yuan explained to his friend that today was a great day to celebrate their partnership. He looked at his girlfriend and thought that she was irresistible. He slyly suggested to his girlfriend that she sit next to him. The guy remembered that he spent a lot of money on the cafe and would be paying his girlfriend's salary. He decided that he needed to receive his percentage. The main character sat next to the girl. She felt very uncomfortable. Chen felt his touch. She thought that in this world nothing comes for free and everything must have a reason. The protagonist hugged his girlfriend. She asked him to stop. The waitress was supposed to come to them. He replied that the food wasn't served that quickly at this place and that she shouldn't worry. A minute later, a waitress outside the booth shouted to the customer that his order was ready. Chen shouted to her friend that someone was coming. The protagonist, in as calm a voice as possible, told the waitress that she could come in. Yuan used chopsticks to serve food to a girl at a table. He said it was the restaurant's signature dish. The girl glanced sideways at the guy and decided that he was a swindler. Yuan was acting very distant. Chen carefully examined the guy with her gaze and decided that she shouldn't dwell on this now. 40 minutes later, the waitress behind the counter handed the protagonist a check for 2,600 yuan. She gave him the code for the transfer. Yuan held out his phone to pay for dinner. He thought the system had transferred the entire amount he'd spent 3 times over. She stood next to him, surprised. On the street, the girl said she wanted to go back to the restaurant. She would talk to the waitress and learn more about the job. Yuan explained to his companion that it would be best for him to go home and rest. Tomorrow, she would go to the cafe with renewed vigor. Chen asked the protagonist in a shy voice for a ride home. Yuan agreed to his friend's request. The girl near the car promised the guy that she would send him a report for the day tomorrow. Yuan asked his girlfriend for some water. She turned away shyly and said that all this was not very appropriate. To herself, she thought that the guy was in a big hurry. Yuan told the girl in a reasonable voice that there might be another man waiting for her at home. She reminded Yuan in a displeased voice that she had recently broken up with her. The guy calmly explained to his girlfriend that he just wanted to drink some water from her. The girl's companion sternly asked the guy, "Is he really going to just drink some water and leave?" Yuan replied that he would stay with her if she didn't want to let him go. She looked at the guy with great displeasure and suspicion. She studied him carefully with her eyes. The main character came up and hugged his girlfriend. The girl near the door looked at the guy with displeasure and tried to push him away with her hand. She shyly reminded him that he just wanted to drink water. The guy cheerfully replied to the girl that he wanted to drink a different kind of water. He hugged her, and she no longer tried to move away from him. At that moment, an expensive car pulled up to the building below. The man behind the wheel fearfully thought that he might get his Chen back. The man walked outside with a bouquet of flowers. He glanced at the building and noticed that the lights in the apartment were still off. He decided to leave the flowers near the entrance. The girl should have realized that he had given them to her. He approached the girl's door and heard someone's voices and noise inside. He listened carefully and realized that it was the main character's voice. The angry man began to bang his fist on the door with all his might. He demanded that the girl come out quickly. The protagonist listened closely and realized that he was hearing her voice. The man came to the girl even after they broke up. The girl listened carefully. She realized that someone was knocking on the door outside. Yuan told her friend that she misheard. C dropped the flowers on the floor near the girl's door in amazement. He realized that he no longer had any chance. The girl on the bed looked at the guy with displeasure and asked, "What is he doing?" Yuan asked his girlfriend to turn over on her back so as not to get tired. The next day, the protagonist woke up in bed and looked away. He smelled food. Chen was already awake. She was standing in the kitchen and preparing breakfast for her guest. Yuan sat on the bed. He thought she was very attentive. This kind of atmosphere could only be felt at home. At this time, Chen was cooking eggs on the stove. The system told the owner details about the ideal life. He received various rewards. Yuan thought happily to himself that the system had just brought his thoughts to life. He decided that the reward for such a task would not be modest. The protagonist imagined himself by the pool surrounded by several girlfriends. He decided that a mansion would be the ideal option for him. Chen turned away from the stove and told the guy that breakfast would be ready in 2 minutes. The protagonist asked his girlfriend, "Is breakfast really all that awaits him?" He wondered what reward he would receive if his crush reached level 90. He came closer. She shouted at him with displeasure that it was only daytime now. Chen dropped a kitchen spatula on the floor. The protagonist told the girl in a sly voice that they could go for a walk today. He wanted to choose a house to give her. The girl remembered with surprise that the main character had spent 300,000 on buying a cafe, and now he wanted to buy her a house. Real estate in the city would be worth at least $1 million. She really thought the guy had enjoyed their night together. Yuan asked, "Doesn't she really want such a gift?" The partner replied that this was all unexpected for her. The guy happily remembered that he had over 3.5 million yuan in his account. If he spent it on buying a house, the system would return it fivefold. In total, he'd receive 17 million. The main character hugged his girlfriend and told her to choose a house with an area of 120 square meters for herself. Yuan told her friend that the soundproofing in this apartment was very poor. They couldn't stay there anymore. Chen explained to her friend that it wasn't only her fault. The main character told the girl that it was also his fault that she screamed loudly. The girl anxiously reminded the guy that she was supposed to meet them at 10:30 today. She suggested that they have coffee first and then go look at the property. The protagonist explained to the girl that to buy a house, she needed to choose a suitable location and sort out the paperwork. There would be no time for that after lunch. Chen told her friend that she would inform them about it. The girl in the car fearfully told her friend Mengu that Chen would not be able to come due to urgent matters. Liu Mengu asked the passenger why their friend wouldn't be there. The passenger told the girl that she might have problems with the cafe. She also couldn't believe that some guy would simply spend 300,000 to buy a business for a stranger. Liu thought to herself that she hadn't met a young and handsome guy in years. She couldn't believe that Chen would be the first to get such a friend. She wanted to meet the main character. The passenger began to write a message on her phone with concentration. She wanted to ask everyone about everything. The girl suddenly hit the brake pedal with all her might, and the car began to stop. The passenger, frightened and surprised, announced that she would receive a house as a gift from her friend today. Liu looked ahead with excitement in front of the car. She calculated that the guy was ready to spend between 800 and 900,000 on her girlfriend. The driver realized she had to meet the main character. She decided she could attract Yuan. Liu asked her friend to clarify with her what kind of property she wanted to choose. They could help her. The passenger began to write a message on her phone for her friend with concentration. The car with the girls stopped near a luxury residential complex. Liu looked ahead in surprise and thought that the houses in this area were very expensive. The girl happily waved her hand to her friend and shouted that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Chen told her partner that she missed her very much. She asked Chen who the guy next to her was and asked her to introduce them. Chen introduced the main character to her aunts. She named them. Chen told the guy that Liu Mengu is her personal trainer. Hu Jian is a Ferrari salesman. Liu glanced at the main character. She told him he could come to her gym and that his muscles had potential. To herself, The girl happily thought that the guy was very young and handsome, something she'd envied. Yuan explained to his partner that he wouldn't be able to concentrate in the gym. Liu looked slyly to the side and realized that if the guy was flirting with her, it meant he wasn't dating Chen. Mengja glanced at her friend and noticed that her knees were bruised. She realized that this was why the protagonist had decided to buy her a house. Hu smiled at the guy and said that if he wanted to change the car, he could come to her showroom. Yuan explained to his partner that when he wanted to change the car, he would come to her. The main character noticed that his two female acquaintances had become more attracted to him. The guy thought to himself that the more female friends he knew with a high level of sympathy, the more money he would earn. Juan walked down the street with the Onami. They were heading home. One of the men looked with displeasure at the guy accompanied by three beauties. The saleswoman stood next to a model of the house. She told the guy the prices of the apartments and invited him to look at the layout. The protagonist told the saleswoman that his budget was around 3 million yuan. He asked her to show him apartments that would suit his budget. The saleswoman invited the guests into the meeting room. She wanted to provide them with more professional advice. Liu was very surprised when she heard that the main character could easily spend 3 million. Meng very determinedly told herself that she had to latch on to such a guy. The worker sat at the desk. She offered the protagonist a suitable apartment for 2,900,000 yuan. Chen looked at her friend with excitement. The price of real estate seemed high to her. The protagonist put his hand on the girl's leg and told her not to worry about the price. Living in a big house is much more comfortable. Liu watched the guy closely from the side. She realized that he was a true sponsor, loyal and generous. The main character decided to haggle with the saleswoman. He asked her if there was any discount. The employee told the guy that if he wanted to make a choice today, she would ask for a higher discount. Yuan told his co-worker that he was willing to get 2 parking spaces for himself. Liu looked at the protagonist with interest. She realized that she had to get him. Yuan looked at the girl Mengu with displeasure and became interested in what she was planning. The main character looked at the girl and realized to himself that she was very gorgeous. Yuan studied his new acquaintance with a very intent and attentive gaze. He started fantasizing. He decided that it would be wonderful for him. Yuan told himself that he couldn't get distracted now. He had to focus on buying the house. The saleswoman handed the protagonist a pen and told him to sign the contract. The purchase cost him almost 3 million. 2 girlfriends sat and watched with great excitement as a guy signed a document to purchase real estate. Liu looked at him with envy and wanted a $3 million house for herself. The protagonist glanced at his phone. He received a message that more than 15 million yuan had been deposited into his account. The guy happily thought that the system was simply amazing. Attracting a large number of women had become the right path for him. The system informed the owner that he should receive a reward for the mission. He received a villa on Qingzhou Lake. The guy should come to the office at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning to sign the documents. Yuan was very happy. The saleswoman looked at the guy and thought slyly to herself that she would also like to have such a friend. She offered to exchange contact information with the protagonist. He could contact her if he wanted to buy more real estate. The protagonist held a phone in his hand. He told the saleswoman that she could scan his account. Liu was very angry because she saw a stranger in front of her who encroached on her boyfriend. Manga jumped up and told the protagonist with a smile that she too was planning to buy an apartment in the future. She would need his advice. Liu scanned the protagonist's phone. She told him with a smile that she would always help him with his training. The protagonist stood up and told his girlfriend that she could go with the girls and get a bite to eat. He had other plans. Liu was unhappy because the guy was leaving and didn't want to have lunch with them. Chen invited her aunts to go to a cafe. Hu told the girl that she was now worth a whole 3 million, and they were dying of envy. Liu smiled happily at her partners and said that she agreed. Half an hour later, the protagonist was in the college cafeteria. He noticed his assistant sitting at a table there. Yuan came up and looked closely at the girl. She was holding a phone in her hands. The girl was talking to someone on the phone and said that the report would be ready by tomorrow. She clarified for her partner that she would be busy tomorrow evening. The assistant told Secretary of State Liu on the phone that she really couldn't do it this time. After that, she said goodbye. The main character approached from the side. Yuan asked the professor what had happened. She told him that their college was planning to create a startup database for students. That's exactly what she had discussed. Yuan took the spoon in his hands and asked Li with interest about the base for the startup. The professor reached for the food tray. She told the boy that the administration wanted to provide entrepreneurial support to students. But right now, they're struggling and don't have enough funding. So they're looking for partnerships with foreign companies. Yuan asked the professor what terms their college could offer companies. The professor told him that they could offer their talents, which would then sign contracts with the companies. A student told his partner that their university had very few graduates compared to larger institutions. Li explained to him that if the company didn't get what they wanted, they would refuse to invest. The disgruntled girl remembered that the Secretary of State had invited her to have a drink with the company's directors. The protagonist looked at the professor and remembered that he had 10 million in his account. Li thought to herself that for a project to be considered profitable, the student success rate had to be 33%. At their college, the rate was only 20%. The guy hesitated and didn't know what to say. The professor asked him if he was interested. The student replied that he wasn't particularly interested. Lee excitedly told the guy that it was great that he had ideas and desires, but the project hadn't been launched yet. The system informed the owner that he should earn points and invest in student projects. As a reward, he could receive special skills. Yuan sat at the table and thought that such a base would be ideal for him. It would also help the professor solve her problem. The protagonist happily thought to himself that he was an investor and could decide who and how much to invest. Yuan decided to invest in a store for female students and earn points from it. This would all bring him a lot of money. The guy asked his partner who evaluates students for investment. Lee explained to the guy that the college has to evaluate students, but they don't have any investors right now, so they still have room for negotiation. Yuan told the girl that he agreed to be an investor, but he would choose the students he would finance, Lee reminded the guy. With surprise that his family was bankrupt, he had even applied for a scholarship. The protagonist showed the girl his phone with his remaining balance. Yuan told himself that he no longer had to act modest. He would prove himself to everyone and earn more respect and sympathy. Lee looked at the phone in surprise and said that the guy had 15 on his account. The professor asked the guy in surprise, "Where did he get so much money?" Yuan explained to his partner that he made his money on cryptocurrency and foreign exchange markets. Lee was very surprised when she realized that one of her students was a multimillionaire. The protagonist leaned toward the girl and told her to follow him. He told the professor that in the future they would travel the world. He wanted to make sure she lived in luxury. The guy imagined himself leading his professor by the hand on the beach. Lee, in a disgruntled and offended voice, told the guy not to talk nonsense. She warned him that student startups rarely turn a profit. The protagonist jumped to his feet. He told the girl that he still wanted to contribute to the development of the college. The girl realized with great excitement that the guy was serious when he suggested that they be together. The professor sternly reminded herself that the boy was just her student. Lee jumped up from the table. She told the guy that she needed to go now. They could talk later. As a parting shot, Yuan shouted at the girl to think carefully about what it means to eat well and drink well. The main character was chatting on the phone with his girlfriend. She invited him over for coffee. The protagonist's former classmate, Sun Xiao, overheard a conversation from the side. Someone said that the protagonist is no longer the rich boy he used to be. She told the girl Yu Ping that she was dating the main character's roommate. Yu Ping asked her friends to go with her next time the guy treated them to dinner. The girl told her friend that the next time she went with Huang Haibao, she would be able to eat for free. If she chose Yuan, she would only be wasting her money. The girl slyly turned to the side and told them that Yuan was walking next to them. The protagonist approached the stairs and prepared to climb them. One of the students said that the guy was supposed to be running to his part-time job right now. For him, it was the perfect time. The girl told the Onam in a sly voice that they could find out where the main character worked. Soon replied that they were all classmates and there was no need to find out. The girl asked the protagonist where he worked part-time. She promised to come and support him. Yan smiled at his partners and decided he could play along. He told the girls that he worked at a coffee shop and could treat them. The students came to the cafe and noticed two girls working there, Liu and Chen. The students looked at the cafe workers in surprise. Soon couldn't believe that such stylish beauties worked in such a place. She greeted the main character very joyfully. She asked her friend, had he really said before that he had a meeting with his classmates? Yuan turned around. He said that the guests had already finished their business and wanted to have a cup of coffee. Liu smiled slyly at the students and greeted them. The protagonist told the employee, Zhao Qiu, to find out from the customers what they wanted and pay them for everything at his expense. The employee smiled at the boss and said she would do everything. The protagonist looked slyly at the students. The girls felt awkward. The employee told the customers to sit down and tell her when they were finished choosing. The student was very surprised. She realized that the cafe employee had called the main character boss. The astonished customer couldn't believe that Yuan was the cafe owner. The student told her companion in a frightened voice that they should refuse the offer. She agreed with her. The students turned around and ran away. The girl was upset that the protagonist was pretending to be a handyman in front of her. In reality, he had already managed to start his own business. Liu asked the boy in surprise why his classmates had left so quickly. Yuan answered his partner in a sly voice that the students might have been frightened by the sight of the two beautiful fairies. Liu glanced slyly at the guy from the side. She told him that he should behave decently and not think about stupid things. Chen brought her guests a cup of coffee. She told them with a smile that she added sugar to her taste. Yuan took the cup from the girl's hands with a smile and said that the coffee was very sweet. Liu silently watched the guy from the side, slyly and attentively. She was surprised by his phrases. The protagonist was completely absorbed in his conversation with his girlfriend. Liu was sitting to the side. She slyly thought that the words sounded different coming from a young, rich, handsome man. A guest at the table asked a guy his height and weight. She wanted to calculate his body mass index. Yuan, holding a cup in his hands, told his partner that his height was 182 centimeters and his weight was 72 kilograms. He had recently lost a little weight. The partner asked the guy in a shocked voice how all this had happened to him. Yuan drank coffee from his cup. He slyly told his surprised partner that he had put a lot of effort into something. Liu looked slyly at the guy from the side and said that for her, all this was not surprising. Liu was doing calculations on her phone. She told the guy he needed to gain 7 to 10 kilograms of muscle mass. Yuan slyly told his partner that she wanted to sign him up for her gym. The partner winked slyly at the guy. She explained to him that she had to fulfill the plan by the end of the month. Yuan, cup in hand, replied discontentedly that he would think about it. Liu jumped to her feet abruptly. She told her surprised friends that she had to go. Her classes started at 5 o'clock. As they parted, the guest smiled slyly at the protagonist. Yuan looked at the girl and slyly thought that he would definitely tame her. The protagonist jumped to his feet and grabbed the surprised girl by the hand. He told her that they needed to go up to the second floor for training. The protagonist touched his girlfriend's face. He slyly told her that she needed to improve her skills. Chen remembered with alarm that her employee, Xiao, was also nearby. Yuan began to act cautiously. He told her that with such words she could only further mislead him. The main character reached out to his surprised girlfriend and she didn't resist him at all. Xiao was standing near the table with drinks. She heard some noise from above. The employee didn't understand what was going on. Xiao looked up at the ceiling and realized that her boss was there. The employee realized that the cafe needed to close quickly. She ran to the door and put up a sign there, announcing the end of business. Liu suddenly returned to the cafe and knocked on the glass door. She frightenedly asked the worker to open the door for her. The client angrily demanded through the door that the employee let her in quickly. Xiao didn't know what to answer the girl. The guest ran inside the cafe and reached for the bag on the chair. She heard Chen's shouts from above. 10 minutes later, Liu was standing by the table. She told herself in a sly voice that the main character was very thin, but he had a lot of strength inside. Liu shouted to the worker in a sly and loud voice that she was leaving. She said goodbye to her. Chen was in the protagonist's arms. She was very frightened and thought that Liu had heard them. He thought to himself that good teaching requires an audience. Secretary Liu was sitting at the table. He asked the teacher with displeasure, "Does the student really want to be a sponsor of their startup?" The woman told her boss that everything was exactly like that. Liu asked his partner if she had checked the guy's accounts. The teacher excitedly replied that she had found 10 million in the guy's accounts. Louis asked the woman in fear, "Can the guy really manage all this money?" The teacher stood near the table. She explained to the man that the protagonist could invest his own money. The chairperson at the table cheerfully said that they would no longer need to collaborate with outside companies. The man demanded that the woman bring the boy to his office. He wanted to hear all his ideas in person. The teacher suggested that the man treat the student with more respect. Louis glared at the woman. He demanded that she do everything as he said. The main character was relaxing with his girlfriend. He picked up the phone and told the surprised girl that the professor had called him. Yuan, with the phone in his hand, asked the professor what had happened. She told him everything in detail. The main character demanded that the woman on the phone put him on speakerphone with Chairman Liu. The protagonist told the man on the phone that they needed to arrange a meeting. Professor Li would give him his phone number. The chairman shouted at the guy to wait for him. The woman looked at the phone in surprise. She realized that the guy had hung up right in front of the secretary. The man stood near the table. He looked very displeased at Professor Li, who was holding the phone. Li was unhappy that the guy hung up. The chairman thought about it and decided that Mr. Kong would be able to hold someone accountable. The chairman sat down at the table. In an irritated voice, he told the woman to invite the guy somewhere for dinner. She picked up the phone and told the man that she would text the guy in the chat. The protagonist hugged his tired girlfriend. The professor texted him that she needed to meet for dinner. The balance of the negotiations was in her favor. She needed to gain complete control over the investments. While getting dressed, she told the guy not to forget to pick up his things. They could have dinner next time. The protagonist looked at the girl from behind. He happily thought to himself that she cares for him in every way. Yuan picked up the phone. He answered his girlfriend. Min greeted the guy and invited him to go for a walk. The main character told his partner in a very dissatisfied voice that she should have invited him out for a drink. The guy thought the girl hadn't visited him in the last few days. Min slyly replied to her friend on the phone that if he really wanted it, there was nothing complicated about it. The main character grabbed the clothes in his hands. He told his girlfriend that he would pick her up at the dorm. The guy met his friend. Yuan cheerfully told his partner to take care of herself. Min happily kissed the guy. She told him that he was cute. The girl's sympathy towards the main character increased. She asked him, "What kind of relationship do they have now?" Yuan realized that his girlfriend's feelings for him had grown. He realized that she liked her. He told Min out loud that he would now be her boyfriend. She asked in surprise, "Is all this really true?" Yuan answered her that it was all true. Min clung to her friend. She asked him excitedly, "Is she really his one and only girl?" Yuan hummed in response. The protagonist was in the arms of his girlfriend. He slyly turned away. Yuan remembered that he hadn't called all his girlfriends girlfriends. Min held the protagonist's hands. She promised him that she would reward him in a couple of days. Yuan asked his partner what he should give her for the weekend. She nervously told her boyfriend that a house or a car would be too expensive for her. A bag or cosmetics would be enough. Yuan confidently told his partner that they would buy her a house first, then they could think about a car. The main character walked arm in arm with his girlfriend. He promised her that he would walk her to the dorm. The main character was driving his car down the street on a clear day. He stopped at a traffic light. Liu called her boyfriend. She slyly invited him to the gym and called him skinny. Yuan asked his partner with displeasure, "Since when did he become skinny?" Liu told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that he should confess to her that he had dirty thoughts. The girl stood in the gym. She glanced slyly at her phone and thought that the main character didn't treat her like a stranger. A client entered the gym and greeted the trainer. Liu turned around and greeted Miss Zhou with a smile. I asked my friend why she was smiling like that. The trainer told her client that she was chatting with a friend and the guy made her laugh. Two girls were sitting at a table. The client demanded that her friend tell her everything. Liu happily told her partner that she had found a sponsor. The guy gave her a house worth 3 million. Zhou said with surprise that the sponsor must have tens of millions in his account. Liu explained to her friend in a thoughtful voice that she envied the lucky girl. The client said in a thoughtful voice that a rich sponsor must be very old. Liu was sitting at a table. She explained to her partner that the sponsor was very young. He was only a little over 20 years old. Zhou asked her partner, "Does the guy really look like some kind of freak?" The coach jumped to her feet. She told her partner in an excited voice that the guy was handsome and tall. Zhou told her partner with admiration that her friend was a real beauty if she could hook up with such a friend. Liu jumped to her feet. She turned to the side and imagined Zhang standing next to her. The trainer at the table told her partner that she and her friend were about the same. Zhou, surprised, explained to her partner that she now understood why the guy had fallen in love with her friend. The main character was texting his new girlfriend. She asked him to come to her gym. Zhou looked at her partner in surprise. She told the trainer that she was shining even brighter than before. Liu excitedly told her client that she would refund her tuition. Today, she was supposed to go and buy real estate in the Qingzhou area. Zhou was surprised to realize that the coach was now going to a very expensive area to buy real estate. Zhou glanced after Liu. She realized that the coach wanted to steal the guy from her girlfriend. A trainer named Kan Liao ran into the room with a drink in his hand. He asked his colleague where she was going. Liu walked past the guy and didn't say anything to him. Kan looked at her very angrily and displeasedly. The guy glanced at the car that pulled up to the gym. He was surprised that the stranger in the M9 model was able to take Liu with him. Zhou stood next to the guy. She explained to him that the guest, although he drove a cheap car, had recently bought his girlfriend a house for 3 million. Kan was surprised when he heard the 3 million figure. He had to work hard for that. Zhou glanced out the window. She excitedly told the coach that she'd seen this guy somewhere before. The protagonist opened the car door. A trainer stood next to him with a bag over his shoulder. The gym client immediately recognized that the main character was standing in front of her on the street. Zhou was very shocked. She couldn't believe what she saw in front of her on the street. The protagonist stood and joyfully looked at the trainer on the street. Liu was telling him something admiringly. Zhou realized with horror that her ex-boyfriend turned out to be very rich. The client felt devastated. She remembered with disappointment that she had broken up with the main character a couple of weeks earlier. Zhou stood on the gym balcony. She was very disappointed. The girl couldn't understand that she had abandoned the main character for Bao Jun. Han asked the client from the side, worriedly, "Is she really angry?" Zhou was texting her friend. She angrily replied that she wouldn't come to see him that evening. Bao was sitting at the table with a computer. He was holding a phone in his hand and was unhappy that his girlfriend had blocked him. The girl stepped aside. She decided to calm down. Zhou still hoped that she would be able to meet the main character again. Zhu imagined the main character surrounded by his girlfriends. She was afraid that she would be too much for the guy. Liu sat in the car next to the main character. She happily told him that with such a car you can easily go on an off-road hike. Yuan was sitting behind the wheel. He calmly told his companion that all this could be tried next time. The girl turned around and told the guy in a disgruntled voice that he wasn't playing by the rules. The protagonist asked the passenger what she meant. The passenger in her seat was lost in thought. She didn't say anything in response to the guy. Yuan asked the coach in a sly voice if he wanted to play ball with her. The girl laughed slyly. She cheerfully asked the guy why he was teasing her. The main character and his passenger drove up to the real estate agency building in their car. The client walked into the building. He told the saleswoman he wanted to finalize the contract for the house. An agent named Guan Shufang told the guy he could look at the house or the documents first. Yuan explained to the saleswoman that he wanted to sign the contract first and then see the house. Guan bowed to the customer and said she understood. After signing the contract, the protagonist drove the employee in his car. The manager kept a close eye on Coach Shea in the front seat. Liu sat in her seat and looked attentively at the road ahead. Guan carefully examined the passenger's figure. Guan sat on the back wheel of the car. She thought with disappointment that ordinary girls like her had no chance. The main character and his passengers drove up to a very expensive country house. Liu happily jumped out of the car onto the street. She told the guy with admiration that this place was excellent. Yuan walked forward with the manager towards the house. Liu looked sternly at the guy from behind. She wanted to get him for herself so she could live in this house. Guan walked next to the main character. She told him that the villa's area is 610 square meters. There is also a garden. Liu, from behind, joyfully shouted to the guy that the place is really huge. The system informed its owner that he had received a cash bonus for purchasing real estate. He was awarded 20 million rubles in exclusive funds for interior design. The boy closed his eyes. He thought joyfully to himself that if the system told him so, then all he had to do was obey. The protagonist asked the saleswoman if she knew any good repair companies. Guan, smiling, informed the guy that she knew several good construction and repair companies with a good reputation. She promised to pass on their contact information. He waved his hand at the saleswoman. He told her that there was nothing much to look at in a house with bare walls. Liu turned around and asked the guy with a smile if she could record a video and show it on social media. Yuan turned to the girl and told her that he shouldn't be in her video. Liu, in a sly voice, told the guy that influential people would publish his edited photos online. The protagonist approached the car. He asked his girlfriend how many subscribers she had. She told him she had a little over 50,000 subscribers. Yuan asked the girl if she had many fans. Liu explained to the guy that most of her fans were local people. She asked him if he wanted to watch her video. He was sitting in the driver's seat. He told the girl that 50,000 men had already seen her video. His companion explained to the guy that he could get a premium subscription to her. The protagonist asked the girl for a link to her account. He suggested they make a video review of the bar together. The woman cheerfully told the guy she would send him the link right now. He slyly asked his trainer while driving, should they go back to the gym now? She asked her partner, does he really have any more ideas? Yuan, while driving, told his companion that he expected them to play ball. Coach Eshe reminded the guy in a disgruntled voice that he had harassed her girlfriend the previous day. The main character slammed on the brakes very hard. The girl almost hit herself inside the car. The seatbelt held her back. After stopping the car, Yuan reminded the girl that he hadn't even done anything with her yesterday. He suggested that she take his girlfriend's place. Liu looked at the guy very angrily and said that now he would decide all of this. He was driving a car. The girl next to him slyly thought to herself that she would get closer to him, and then Yuan would pursue her long and hard. Liu imagined the guy kneeling before her. The girl decided that Yuan would never be able to look at anyone else but her. The trainer got out of the car. She told the guy to come see her at the gym. Yuan was driving. He told the girl with a smile that they could shoot hoops together sometime. At the gym, the girl was met by a manager named Huang Mingbo. He looked at her with displeasure and asked why she had missed her morning workout. The trainer nervously explained to the manager that she had personal problems. She promised to give Zhou double the money for the missed lesson. Huang explained to the worker that Zhou had filed a complaint against her. He managed to settle everything. Liu couldn't understand why the manager was so angry with her. She decided that the man was laughing at her. The trainer walked past the manager. She told him that she would return to work. Huang invited the employee to eat together. Liu turned around. She told the manager in a sly voice that she had all the food with her. She decided that she would go to a luxurious mansion for a grand show. Liu confidently walked forward. She told herself that no one could stand in her way. The school council secretary Kong Zuoping sat at the desk. He asked the man if he had spoken with the protagonist's homeroom teacher. Liu stood near the desk. He told the principal that he had asked for application materials, but there had been no response yet. Kong warned his subordinate that they needed to find out all the details about the guy now. They couldn't make hasty decisions. Liu suggested that his boss contact the guy in advance. The chairman told the man that there would be a preliminary meeting that afternoon. They wanted to bring the professor with them. Liu was surprised when he realized that the Secretary of State would also come to the meeting in person. The protagonist was in his dorm room late at night. A friend came up to his bed and joyfully asked when he would be able to conquer his girlfriend, Tian Yupin. Yuan read his friend's phone messages with displeasure. He decided that the guy hadn't made any progress in 3 years. The student told the protagonist in a proud voice that the girl would very soon fall for his bait. Yuan handed his friend his phone. He told the student that a guy named Lao Kao could help him communicate with girls. A student told his friend at the table in a disgruntled voice that he was the most experienced one in their dorm. The student's partner turned around in his chair. He asked his friend with a disgruntled expression, "Did he really offend him today?" The guy excitedly told the protagonist that he'd arranged to meet the girl this weekend. This meant she was interested in him. Yuan smiled and told his partner that this was indeed the case. The student turned around joyfully. He shouted that he would succeed if the main character said so. The guy heard someone knocking on the door. He didn't know who could be breaking in now. The student was surprised to see Secretary Kong and Liu at the classroom entrance. He didn't understand why these guests had come to see him. The woman asked the boy if the protagonist was there. The student invited the guests into the room. He didn't understand why the teachers needed a protagonist. The students in the hallway couldn't understand why the administration had arrived at the dorm. Someone suggested that the main character might be doing something illegal. A student asked his friend to tell him something interesting. The guy explained to his partner that the main character's source of income was unknown. The student shouted at his friend in a disgruntled voice that he was talking nonsense. The guy smiled and told his partner to wait and see for himself. The teacher introduced two men from the student committee to the main character with a smile. Yuan jumped to his feet. He greeted Secretary Kong. The man invited the boy to have dinner with him that evening. The protagonist accepted the man's invitation to have dinner that evening. Kong cheerfully said he would book a table. They could go together and discuss the business space. The students in the corridor looked with displeasure at the departing protagonist and his companions. The guy told his friends in a sly voice that they could tell someone that the main character was an undercover agent. Two secretaries came to invite him to dinner. The student said excitedly that the Yuan had great influence if two secretaries invited him. The guy shouted to his friends in a sly voice that the main character had done something grandiose. The college administration had invited him somewhere. Yuan was sitting in the Nanjian restaurant with his companions. Kong was holding a glass in his hand. He asked the guy to tell him about his project. The guy explained to the man that his investment conditions must be met. This would not lead to any losses. The secretary demanded that the guy speak frankly. The guy explained to the man that he wanted complete independence in this matter. He would decide for himself who would receive investments in his projects and how much. No one could interfere. Lu became angry when he heard the boy say such words. Kong reassured his companion. The secretary told the boy that the university's entrepreneurial base had many aspects. The institution's leaders always took students' academic performance into account. Yuan, sipping a glass, explained that success depends on whether the students can earn money with the support. He himself has a vested interest in this, as the students will receive funding from him. After the conversation, the protagonist raised a glass of wine to his mouth. After that, he began to dream. Yuan imagined himself surrounded by subordinates in a large office. He thought to himself that the system wanted to create industries and a reputation for him. He would eventually become an oligarch. Yuan saw all his girlfriends appear on the big hand. He needed a lot of professionals to manage the huge industry structure. He decided to prepare his team. The secretary told the guy that he would return to him after he had conducted seminars with the heads of the educational bureau. Yuan bumped his glass with the man and said that he would wait. Kong got into the car. He told the woman that the main character had been drinking and now couldn't drive. She had to take care of him. Li sat in the driver's seat. She told the guy with admiration that his car was very spacious. Yuan turned around in the same car and told his companion that he was tired of riding in sedans and decided to try an SUV. Li called her friend. She discussed the details of her move with her. The guy turned around. He asked the professor in surprise if she was really moving. Li looked closely at her phone. She said her lease was ending. She had found a new place. The boy asked the teacher if she wanted him to help her. She told the boy that she didn't want to ask him for help moving after buying a new car. The protagonist explained to the woman with a smile that the car would help her move. She told her partner in a worried voice that he shouldn't bother himself. She still needed to buy a lot of things. The teacher looked at the guy carefully. He seemed very attractive to her. Li felt shy. She thought with excitement that the guy really liked her. The teacher turned away. She anxiously asked the boy if he remembered the bag he'd given her earlier. Yuan asked his partner what she wanted to tell him. The woman reminded the guy that he had previously told her the bag was a high-quality fake. Yuan explained to his partner that it was normal to give women such things. The main character explained to his partner that the gift of a bag was simply a sign of respect. The teacher turned to the boy and called him by name with excitement. Yuan reassured her with a gesture and said that everything was fine. He promised her that he wouldn't give up. Li got out of the car. She asked the guy if he would be sleeping at his place tonight. Yuan explained to his partner that he would be returning to the dorm. The woman held out the car keys to the protagonist. Yuan kissed the woman and said he agreed. He reached out to take the keys from her. The teacher looked at the boy with displeasure. She decided that Yuan had become more bold towards her. Li was unhappy because the student wanted to kiss her. The teacher turned around abruptly and started running away. She shouted at the boy that he was a bad student. Li approached the building's gate. She called the protagonist and asked him to open the door to the cafe for Mrs. Lin Yucheng. Lin called the protagonist and told him that she had left toys for her child at the cafe. Last time, she had completely forgotten to pick them up. Yuan walked up to the door and prepared to open it. He told the girl not to worry. Lin entered the cafe and began to carefully look around. The protagonist remained near the entrance. The girl approached the counter. She told the protagonist that her son had scattered toys around while he was playing. Yuan approached the client and told her to take her time. He asked how old her baby was. Lin held a large bottle near the bag. She told the protagonist that her son was 3 years old and a very cheeky boy. Yuan thought with displeasure that the customer had started drinking alone in the cafe often. Lin glanced sideways. She told the protagonist that she seemed to have taken everything. Yuan asked the client, did she really have problems with her husband? The girl held a bag in her hands. She thoughtfully told the protagonist that she constantly thinks about those days and nights when she spent time with her husband. Yuan decided to himself that the girl was sitting alone in the cafe and drinking to forget about her problems with her husband. Out loud, he told her that she could come visit him there often. Lin turned around. As she was leaving, she told the protagonist that this was her last time here. The guy offered her a drink together. Lin asked the guy with excitement, "Would this really be appropriate?" Yuman answered the client that there was nothing wrong with it. Yuan sat at a table next to the girl. He poured her wine and asked if she was really feeling depressed because of her family. Lin asked her partner how he had figured all this out. Yuan poured wine into a glass. He told the girl that he knew her husband, Mr. Xianyun. This man worked as the general manager at a car dealership. One employee even quit because of this man. Lin asked the guy with fear, "Could it be that Miss Chen and her husband were to blame for this?" Yuan bumped glasses with the girl. He explained to her that the car dealership employee quit because Xianyun harassed her. The client raised the glass to her mouth. She said in a thoughtful voice that she had recently planned to divorce her husband. She knew about his infidelity. Lin closed her eyes and clutched her head with her hand. She didn't expect her husband to be such a person. The mother was afraid that her son would grow up in a single-parent family and suffer psychological trauma. Yuan looked closely at his partner. He told her that she had to make the right decision for herself and for the child. Lin looked at the guy carefully. She told him with excitement that all of this really did make sense. The girl looked at the guy carefully. She decided that he had a charm that her husband didn't have. Lin bumped her glass with the guy's glass and shyly thanked him. The girl jumped up near the table. She told the guy that they needed to leave. Yuan stood up and told his partner that he agreed. The tench suddenly slipped. She couldn't stand on her feet any longer. Yen suddenly jumped forward. He frightenedly caught his girlfriend as she fell on him with his hands. Lin grabbed the protagonist with her hands. She frightenedly asked him for forgiveness. The girl hugged the surprised guy. Yuan felt very embarrassed. The protagonist watched the girl leave in surprise. He didn't know what her kiss meant. Lin walked down the evening street. She thought to herself with displeasure that it was all her fault. The girl decided that her husband, Xianyun, had turned out to be a useless coward. Yuan called his girlfriend Chen. He told her in an excited voice that he wanted to spend the night with her. 20 minutes later, the protagonist arrived at his girlfriend's home. Chen opened the door and anxiously asked the guy how much he had drunk. Yuan glanced at his girlfriend with a drunken look. He said that at the dinner with the class teachers, he had no choice. He hugged the girl. Chen told the guy that he should sit for 10 minutes. Then she would make him some tea and he would sober up a bit. Yuan hugged her. He told the girl in a sly voice to hug him too. The main character continued to hug her. She asked her friend with great displeasure, "Is this really his hug?" The girl collapsed onto the bed. She looked at the guy in fear. She thought to herself with great displeasure that her friend was coming to her under false pretenses. He fell on top of her and she felt unhappy. Yuan stood with his girlfriend in the bedroom. The girl angrily told the guy that there was no longer any trust between them. The hostess advised the guest to use a second blanket. They had to sleep in the same bed. Yuan glanced slyly at his girlfriend sleeping next to him on the bed. He thought she was very shy, and he wanted to correct that tonight. The guy suddenly sneezed loudly. She rushed to him in fear and asked, "What happened?" Yuan wrapped himself in a blanket. He told the girl that he needed to turn on the air conditioner. He was very cold. Chen got ready to get out of bed. She told the guy that she would turn it on now. The protagonist reached out and embraced the girl. He slyly told her that she didn't need to turn on anything. Yuan hugged her. He said that everything would be fine if they were under the same blanket. The protagonist read the note in the morning. The landlady left him some food. Yuan happily thought the girl was very nice. He even decided to buy her a new car. Lu called her friend via video link. She was at the gym and invited the guy over. The protagonist became agitated. He pushed the phone aside with his hand and ordered himself that he couldn't look at it. The trainer slyly asked the guy why he moved the phone so far away. Yuan opened his eyes in horror and looked at his phone. He realized that the girl was openly seducing him. The main character looked at his phone in surprise. He saw that the professor had called him. The guy said goodbye to Coach Shay. He said they would call her later. Liu slyly waved her other hand and said goodbye to him. The student greeted the professor. The woman cheerfully informed the student that his proposal had been approved by management. They would soon send him application forms and business plans from the students. Yuan reminded his partner to include the participants' height and weight on the forms. The guy explained to the teacher that students' personal information is very important. A competent entrepreneur must have a good physique and appearance. The teacher excitedly told the student that this was all something new for her. She promised the boy that student council representatives would contact him soon. Yuan sat up in bed. He told the woman that everything was fine on his end. The teacher placed her hand on the table. She asked the boy if he would be free tomorrow. She and her sister were scheduled to move in the morning. Yuan nervously told the woman that they would see each other tomorrow. The main character managed to have breakfast within half an hour and was already getting ready to leave. The guy noticed with surprise that his coach had called him. Liu asked her friend in a disgruntled voice what he was doing. He hadn't called her back. Yuan told his partner that he was already getting ready to leave for a scheduled meeting. I asked the guy with great excitement and interest, "Does he really not need any burden?" The protagonist threw on a shirt. He told the coach that if she wanted to go with him, she could join him. The guy thought to himself that Liu's presence at the table might help him choose a design. The trainer smiled slyly at the guy. She told him that she would be waiting for him at the gym. The protagonist got out of the car. A stranger told him excitedly that he was waiting for a girl. Yuan replied to his partner that it was all true. The man told the guy in a sly voice that he wouldn't be able to win first-class girls with his car. The main character was standing near the car. He told the man in a thoughtful voice that he understood everything. At this moment, the trainer came out of the gym. She was heading towards the main character. The stranger greeted the girl cheerfully and invited her to go and have lunch with him. Liu told Mr. Fan that she couldn't go with him. She had already made arrangements with another guy. The fan looked at the protagonist with fear. He told him that he wanted to go with them. He promised to pay for lunch. The protagonist opened the car door for his girlfriend. He told the man that he didn't want to have lunch with people who drove SUVs. Lin got into the car. She told the protagonist that they needed to leave. The fan was very angry because the coach left with the guy in his car. Lin told the protagonist in the car that the man's car was worth more than 2 million yuan. He had been chasing it for a long time, but he didn't want it. The girl looked at the guy from the side with concern. She told him with displeasure that he was very quiet today. Yuan, behind the wheel, asked his partner what she wanted him to tell her. Lin, in a thoughtful voice, told the guy that he wasn't as lively as usual. The protagonist glanced slyly at the girl. The guy said out loud to his companion that a man was interested in when he was working out or preparing for a workout. Lin turned to the guy with displeasure. She called him a pervert in a loud voice. The coach grabbed the guy by the clothes. She asked in an angry voice, "Why are all men like this?" Yuan explained to his partner in a sly voice that he was talking to her about basketball. The passenger turned away. She reminded the protagonist in a displeased voice that the last time they were at the cafe, he had rushed off upstairs right after she left. The main character, while driving, told his partner that she hadn't been particularly busy lately. She had been sending him a lot of messages. Liu explained to the guy that she had changed her training schedule for him. The protagonist turned away. He told the girl with emotion that he felt guilty. Liu demanded that her partner treat her to something tasty to make up for his guilt. The guy told the girl, in a sly voice, that he could offer her a lot of delicious food. Liu angrily shouted at her companion that he was trying to deceive people. Yuan told the passenger that they would eat first and then go to a meeting with the designers. The guy and the girl arrived inside the company. There, they were greeted by a designer named Fu Jinmei. She offered to discuss everything with him. Fu was sitting near the table. She was showing clients the main styles of housing for them on the wall. Liu turned slyly to the guy and said that all three options looked amazing. She asked her friend what his budget was. Yuan looked at his girlfriend cheerfully and said that his budget was 20 million. The astonished coach thought the guy must have at least 100 million in his account. After that, she decided to get closer to him as soon as possible. The protagonist jumped up at the table. He told the saleswoman that they needed to go with a modern Chinese style. He decided to go to another company and look at their offer. Fu jumped to her feet. She told the guy that this would be a very smart decision. The manager informed the client that their CEO wanted to see him. Yuan picked up the phone. He told the girl that he hadn't placed his order yet. Fu, smiling, repeated to the customer that their director wanted to get to know them better. She promised to send him the restaurant's address later. Liu waved goodbye to the clients. She thought to herself that the guy was an unusual rich guy. She should have treated him with more respect. The employee entered the director's office. She told him with a smile that Mr. Shen had invited them to have dinner that evening. A director named Wang Zhenming said that the guy shouldn't be allowed to go to another company. He asked the employee if the client had come alone. Fu replied to her boss that the main character was alone. Van demanded that his subordinate take Suzue with them for dinner that day. She asked him to turn on the heater inside the car. Yuan calmly replied to the passenger that he didn't feel the heat at all. Liu turned around and slyly asked the guy what their plan was now. The protagonist slyly asked the passenger if she was going to go back to work. Liu leaned toward the guy. She cheerfully told him that she would stay with him today. Yuan said in a cunning voice that the shadow should follow him day and night. She told him with excitement that she would not leave him anywhere and would be with him. She asked her on the phone what she was doing. She answered her partner that she was in the car. She slyly asked the coach if she was really in Mr. Fan's car right now. Liu replied to her friend that she was currently in the car with the main character. The girl asked the trainer in surprise, "When did they manage to do that?" Liu told her friend over the phone that her boyfriend bought a villa for 10 million. Now he's planning to do renovations for another 20 million. The girl was surprised when she heard her friend mention the main character's wealth. She couldn't believe the guy could now buy something so expensive. The girl thought with displeasure that she was the first to achieve a life of luxury. Now she, too, wanted to get herself a rich guy. The young housewife felt like a failure. All her best friends were now living happily. In the evening, Mr. Wang stood near the Nanjing restaurant, waiting for the protagonist. An unfamiliar man approached him from the side. Wang happily greeted his acquaintance, Xiao Yao, and informed him that he was waiting for a client. Jiao smiled slyly at his acquaintance and said that he would join him later for a drink. The man thought to himself that Wang was waiting for a very important client. The man prepared to enter the restaurant. He turned around in surprise and looked at the beautiful girl. The protagonist pulled up to the restaurant in a car with his girlfriend. Fu informed the boss that a customer named Shen Yuan had arrived. Wang greeted the protagonist and called him a young and promising man. Yuan extended his hand forward and greeted Mr. Bath. The man in glasses slyly asked the guy, "Is that really his girlfriend standing next to him?" Yuan told the man in a frightened voice that he had met this girl by chance today. He named the coach's name. Van looked closely at the guest and greeted her. Liu greeted Mr. Van in return. Liu was unhappy because the main character immediately denied that she was his girlfriend. The man invited the guy to go upstairs. The clients entered the banquet hall and approached the table. Wang introduced the protagonist to a girl, Su Shui. She was their company's design assistant. The guest greeted the protagonist. Yuan extended his hand to the girl and greeted her. The guy thought with excitement that Su was not at all like the other girls he knew. The man picked up a glass. He glanced slyly at the protagonist and realized he liked Su. He said out loud to the guy that he wanted to raise a toast to him. Fu looked at the girl from the side with displeasure. She wanted Su to raise a toast to the main character. The guest suddenly jumped up near the table. She excitedly told the guy that they were raising a glass to him. The main character, sitting at the table, raised a toast to the girl and thanked her. Liu from the side, in a sly voice, offered the guy a drink together. Yuan reached out and grabbed the girl's glass, reminding her that she had to get behind the wheel. Liu glanced slyly at the guy and promised that she would obey him. The girl thought to herself that she felt good being around Yuan. Su approached the main character. In an excited voice, she offered him another glass. Yuan looked at the guest with a glass of wine. He offered her some tea with a smile. Wang smiled and told the girl that she should listen to the guy. She shouldn't have drunk too much. The man explained that Su was in her final year at South China University. The man, sitting on the chair, told the guy and the girl to exchange contacts. Liu looked at the man with displeasure. She remembered that he promised not to say a word about business. Xiao looked in from the side. He shouted to the man with a smile that he came here to have a drink with them. Van told his guest with a smile that his nephew had just approached them. The man told his nephew to come and have a drink with the main character to get to know him better. Xiao thought happily that his uncle valued him very much if he introduced him to an important guest. Xiao looked happily at the protagonist and greeted him. He couldn't figure out who Yuan was. The main character extended his hand with a glass and offered the man a drink to celebrate their acquaintance. Surprised, Xiao could not understand why Uncle Wang invited the guy to his place. Van approached. He told the protagonist in a joyful voice that he already knew his nephew. Yuan glanced slyly at the man and said he supposedly knew Xiao. The uncle told his nephew that the protagonist had recently bought himself a villa in Green City near the lake. He planned to spend over 20 million on renovations. Xiao was angry. He couldn't understand how such a country boy could buy an expensive house. The man was dissatisfied. He couldn't understand why the main character was able to gain his uncle's attention. Xiao smiled slyly at the protagonist. He decided that he would do whatever his uncle said. He congratulated the protagonist out loud. Wang looked slyly at his guest. He suggested they go to another bar or karaoke. Yuan asked the coach if she would go with them. Liu became worried. She remembered that she had never drunk to the point of unconsciousness before. The protagonist glanced slyly at the girl from the side. He advised her not to go for a second attempt. It was good for her to go to bed early and then wake up early. Liu turned and looked closely at the girl at the table. She decided that if she didn't go with the main character, someone else might pick him up. Liu decided to herself that Director Wang wanted to get the main character and Su drunk and then send them to the hotel. The coach decided to herself that the main character liked Su's guest. The coach realized she couldn't allow Yuan and his companion to have a relationship. She jumped to her feet and shouted to the guy that she was ready to go with him. The protagonist and his companions entered the karaoke room. They sat on the sofas near the tables. Fu stood near the microphone. Su was on the couch next to the guy. She was holding a glass in her hands and looking at him with excitement. The protagonist placed his hand on the guest's glass. He told her that they had already drunk enough today. The companion thanked the protagonist in a shy voice. She looked down in front of her. Yuan looked at the girl and said that it must have been difficult for her to get a job in a large company. The trainer sat down next to the guy. She asked with displeasure why he wasn't paying attention to her. Yuan advised his friend to check her phone. Mr. Fan could have already sent her a message. She asked the guy in a displeased voice why he was talking about such stupid things. The girl thought with horror that she herself had found herself trapped. Su Shiltro asked the main character what song he would like to sing. The guy answered his partner that she could choose whatever she wanted. The trainer on the side told the guy in a sly voice that his partner was feeling awkward. Yuan told the girl that she had a tense look in her eyes. Liu told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that she was full of desires, not affection. The protagonist explained to the girl that no matter what kind of woman a man is attracted to, the result will be the same. Liu asked the guy what the result will be. Yuan whispered in his companion's ear about the sliding sheets on the bed. Coach Shi's affection for the guy increased. She decided that Yuan was being honest with her. Yuan reached out his hand to the girl and placed it on her. Liu told her companion in a displeased voice to stop. Van handed the main character a microphone. He happily told him that the girl had requested a good song for them. The guests partied at the karaoke bar until 11 o'clock at night. A man on the street near a car shook the protagonist's hand. He said they should meet more often. Wang promised the protagonist that they would continue their collaboration. He decided to help him organize everything. Yuan told his partner that he only had 2 companies with good designs under consideration. He promised the man to consider his application first. Fu stood and held the girl by the arms. She promised the main character to see her again. The worker smiled and promised the guy that she would deliver her student home safe and sound. The main character told his girlfriend that he wanted to catch a taxi for her. Liu turned away. She asked the guy, "What does he think about himself?" Yuan looked thoughtfully to the side. He told the girl that he would buy a room here and spend the night in it. Liu turned around and asked the guy, "Isn't there a better place to spend the night here?" The main character slyly asked his companion, "Does she really mean her house?" Liu glanced at the guy from the side. She realized that she had to catch him quickly now. Liu told the main character in a stern voice that she was not going to bring a man to her home. Wen looked closely at the girl. He hadn't done anything for her that evening, but she had grown fond of him. The guy picked up the phone. He told the girl that he wanted to call a taxi for her. Liu shouted in a disgruntled voice that she didn't want to go home. Yuan asked her friend in surprise, "Where is she planning to spend the night?" Liu yelled at the guy in a disgruntled voice that her hints should have been enough. The protagonist put his arm around his companion from the side. He said they could choose another hotel. Liu was sitting in the car next to the guy. She was wondering what the main character would be like with her. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror at his passengers. He admired the girl next to the guy. Yuan and his companion arrived at the most expensive hotel in the city. He booked a luxury room for a month. The receptionist told him he had to pay 110,000 yuan for the month. Liu nervously placed her hand on the guy's shoulder. She asked, "Is he really renting a room for a month?" The protagonist took the card in his hands. He told the administrator that he needed the first room on the 52nd floor. The guy thought to himself that he would get a huge cashback. The administrator handed the client a room card. Liu was surprised to think that the guy knew this hotel very well. The main character entered a hotel room with a girl. The trainer approached the window and shouted to the guy that there was a beautiful view from there. Yuan approached his companion. The girl thought with excitement that everything would work out with the guy. Yuan stayed with his girlfriend in the room on the bed for the whole time. The main character woke up on the bed and looked at his phone. The guy felt very hot. He slept until noon. Yuan looked at his girlfriend with interest. He decided that she had a sensitive body. Liu opened one eye. She told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that he didn't care about her at all. He told her that he cares about her. He held back just for her sake. The coach told the guy that she wanted to get some sleep. The protagonist touched the girl's face with his hand and said he agreed. He suggested she take a rest and then go buy her a car for 3 million. Liu jumped up in bed in surprise. She asked the guy to repeat it to her again. She hinted to him that she loved him because of the $3 million car. The protagonist thought about it. He was worried about what his Ona Zhang would think if he bought the coach a car for the same price as the house. She said she liked a $2 million Porsche. She asked the guy, would that be a decent car? And her friend Zhang liked a Maserati. Yuan excitedly asked his partner if her friend really liked the Maserati. Liu asked the guy if he really wanted to buy another girl a car too. The guy looked at the trainer with a sly look. He told her that he was considering this option. Liu thought discontentedly that her friend was very lucky. She received a big house and a car. The total amount was more than 5 million. The coach was texting her friend. She told her partner that she was staying at a hotel with the main character. The girl was unhappy because Liu behaved as if the main character had brought her by force. She, phone in hand, decided that her second friend had also gone on a luxury trip. She herself ended up receiving nothing. The main character was putting on a shirt. He told his girlfriend to choose the car herself. He would then transfer the money to her account. The trainer's sympathy towards the guy increased. She told him in a joyful voice that she agreed. Yuan noted to himself that the girl's affection for him had increased. He was already very close to receiving the reward for reaching level 90. The guy was driving in a car. His partner said on the phone that she wanted to buy him coffee. Yuan told his girlfriend that he was busy today and couldn't come over. He offered to look at the car for her. Jai reminded the guy on the phone in an excited voice that he had recently bought her a house. She asked him not to spend money on a car for her. The main character asked his girlfriend what kind of car she would like. Zhao excitedly told her friend that the simplest car would be enough for her. The protagonist replied that she should drive at least 2 million. The girl was surprised to hear such a price. The guy replied that it would be a holiday gift for her. Yan told his girlfriend that he would love Liu along with her. He realized that he shouldn't hide this from his girlfriend. Zhao answered the guy in a frightened voice that she wouldn't mind. She asked him not to tell her about it anymore. The protagonist was driving a car. He promised his girlfriend that no one could replace her for him. Zhao anxiously asked the guy, "Is he really saying this just for her?" Yuan looked ahead through the car window. He explained to his girlfriend that he was talking only to her. She tearfully promised her friend to come to her cafe. That would be enough for her. The protagonist put his hand on the steering wheel. He thought that she was always trying to save money for him. The guy promised the girl on the phone that he would keep her company that evening to make amends. She was delighted. She laughed slyly at the guy on the phone. She told him that work was waiting for her. Yuan was driving. He was very curious about how guys managed to date multiple girls without getting caught. The teacher stood near the building. She was holding several large boxes in her hands. The woman saw the guy and greeted him joyfully. Yuan explained to the professor that he had come to help her. The guy grabbed the boxes with his hands and helped the woman lift them up. The main character accidentally looked inside the boxes and saw a woman's clothes inside. Suddenly, the guy dropped the box and laundry started spilling out. The woman glanced away with displeasure. The woman began to gather the remains of her clothes into a box. Yuan thought dreamily to himself that all of this could be real. The woman carefully collected the remains of her clothes on the street. She was getting ready to leave. The girl loaded the boxes into the trunk of the car. She said she couldn't move everything in one go. The protagonist had to leave with the teacher first. The teacher looked out of the car window. She told her friend that they would do everything just like that. The passenger asked the guy to set the navigator to Doshin. Yuan told his partner that they were ready to go. The teacher in the passenger seat told the boy not to pay attention to her sister. Yuan explained to the woman that her sister had warmed up to him over the 2 occasions. The teacher peered out the window. She told me that her sister had dated a guy in college. He was refined and handsome, wearing glasses. The girl decided to visit her friend for Christmas, but she saw him with another friend. Lehman felt her heart was broken. She closed herself off from other men. The main character shouted in an angry voice that such people are the scum of society. The teacher looked at the boy slyly from the side. She asked him, "Isn't he that kind of man?" The guy asked his companion what her attitude was toward men. The passenger told the guy that she had experienced an incident with her sister, so she doesn't reject men. Yuan slyly asked his companion what she thought specifically about him. The woman was embarrassed. She looked at the guy from the side with great interest and shyness. The passenger turned to the guy. She asked him with displeasure what he had said. The main character asked his companion with displeasure why she was so nervous. The woman turned away and looked out the window. She realized the guy was joking with her. If he had been serious, she wouldn't have even known how to react. The teacher and her boyfriend arrived at her new apartment. They unloaded boxes. Li Xiao offered her guest a taste of her dinner. The protagonist told his partner that she could thank him without food. The hostess looked at the guy shyly. She wanted to ask him what he wanted to do then. He kissed her. She didn't resist, but she wanted to get rid of him. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. The girl demanded that her sister give her the keys. He continued to hug the hostess. She shouted to the guest that she would come out now. Li pushed the guy aside. She told him in a displeased voice that this was wrong. Yuan promised the woman that he would help her. The girl entered the room. She angrily asked her sister why she was so red. Li told her sister in a shy voice that she was fine. She just needed to rest a little. The hostess happily thought that her sister hadn't understood what had happened between her and the boy. Out loud, she told the protagonist that he would contact his assistant when he returned to school. The boy headed for the door. He said goodbye to the teacher. Yuan realized that the woman was afraid that Li Men would find out about them. I was unpacking the box. She asked the woman what she thought of the main character. She shyly asked her sister, what was she talking about? Li told her sister in a suspicious voice that it didn't look like she was in a relationship with a guy like she was with a student. The woman tried to justify herself to the girl. She said she wasn't sure. The girl told her sister in a very angry voice that the guy couldn't be trusted. She asked the girl with surprise, is she really okay with her relationship with the guy? The girl hugged her sister. She advised her to be careful and find out for sure whether Yuan really is a good guy. The teacher looked away shyly. She repeated the main character's name to herself. An hour later, the protagonist arrived at the student cafeteria. There were a lot of people inside. The student Fu Yingzi waved her hand at the main character and shouted for him to come to her. The protagonist asked the student how long she had been waiting for him. Fu nervously answered the guy that she had just arrived. The guy at the table told the girl that her voice sounded different from the radio. The student explained to the guy that during recording or dubbing, they evolve into their character depending on the situation. The secretary was supposed to arrive soon to help the protagonist get settled into the office. Yuan told his partner that he would need help with other issues. Fu told the guy that she would certainly help him. The main character wanted to tell his partner what kind of help he would need on the first day. A student entered the room. He handed the girl a bag with her favorite oolong. The stranger turned and glared at the protagonist. He asked his girlfriend who it was sitting in front of them. The main character asked the guy with displeasure, did he really take him for his rival? Fu thanked her friend. She said she gives up sugar and doesn't drink tea with milk. The guy explained to his friend that he had walked a very long way to her place, and then stood in line. The student at the table told her friend Fen Jigui in a dissatisfied voice that she didn't want anything from him. The guy told his girlfriend in a dissatisfied voice that he tried. He put the bag on the table. Fen turned around and walked away with a disgruntled expression. People around him couldn't figure out who the guy was who had walked past them. Two students appeared in the room. The girl said in a disgruntled voice that Fu couldn't date the main character. She explained to her partner that the Yuan family was no longer bankrupt. The student suddenly rushed to the side. She shouted that she would still see how far this girl could go. The student ran up and smiled slyly at the protagonist. She greeted him. The student placed her hand on the guy's shoulder. He asked him anxiously, "Will he go to class?" The protagonist replied to his partner that he was just discussing business with Fu. The girl came close to the guy. She slyly asked him why he wasn't in class. She decided he was trying to fail everything. Fu stood near the table. She decided that the girl Minghui wanted to take the main character for herself. She said out loud that she had business at the radio station. She decided to go first. The main character sat in his place. He glanced after his girlfriend and said goodbye to her. A group of students stood to the side. They watched the main character and his onami in amazement. One guy shouted that Fang Minghui was acting just like a wife against a mistress. Fan cleverly asked the main character, what was he chatting about with his girlfriend? Yuan told his partner that he had spoken to the girl about the Student Entrepreneurship Development Center. Fu would collaborate with him at the request of the committee. Fan told the guy in a sly voice that she wanted to spend more time with him, but she had to go to class. The student leaned towards the main character and said that she wouldn't mind having a cold drink today. Fan waved goodbye to the guy. She shouted at him that they would see each other later. Yuan glanced after the student and thought that she really was a cutie. The protagonist called his trainer and asked how she was doing. Liu told her friend over the phone that she had found a car for herself for 2,880,000 yuan. The guy told his friend that she could forward the center's invoice to him. He promised to transfer the money there. Liu told the guy in a joyful voice that she was sending him hearts. She wanted to show her friend her new outfits. The main character asked his partner in a dissatisfied voice what kind of awards she was talking about. The guy thought about it. He realized that he needed to decide which of his 3 girlfriends to spend the evening with. He realized that he had a very difficult choice of 3 options in front of him. 2 tenants were chatting inside Li Xiao's house. The landlady told her sister she was going grocery shopping. Ming slyly suggested to her partner that she invite the protagonist to dinner. Lai was very surprised when she heard such a proposal from her sister. She didn't know what to answer. Men suggested to her sister that they invite the protagonist to dinner. This was the only way they could thank him for his help. Li said in a displeased voice that the girl had something in mind. She didn't want to invite the guy to dinner. The woman very realistically recalled how the main character approached her and hugged her. I told my sister in an angry voice that she was helping her test the guy. She picked up the phone and decided to write to the main character. The guy read a message from his girlfriend inviting him to dinner. Yuan eventually decided for himself that he had to get love. She opened the door and invited the guest inside. She told him that dinner would be a little later. Yuan entered the girl's room. He told her that she could do her own thing. The guy looked around the apartment carefully. He realized that the woman had managed to create a cozy atmosphere very quickly. He asked the owner, "Where is her sister?" Li headed to the kitchen. She told the guy in a displeased voice that her sister was in the shower. The hostess extended her hands forward. She shouted at the guy to stop. Yuan explained to the hostess in a calm voice that he just wanted to see how he could help her. Lai continued to hold her hands in front of her. She told the guy that he could rest in the living room for now. Yuan looked slyly at his girlfriend. He told her that he would keep her company in the kitchen. The woman angrily told the guy that he had come too close to her to talk. The main character told the woman in a sly voice that there was still half a meter between them. She asked the guy in a dissatisfied voice, "What does he want to do?" The protagonist hugged the girl. He told her in a sly voice that he didn't want to do anything. The hostess worriedly told the guy that her sister was nearby. The guy whispered to the woman that her sister would be in her soul for an eternity. The main character hugged the girl and kissed her. She no longer resisted. Men came out of the shower. She shouted to her sister that dinner was ready. At that moment, Li pushed the main character away from her. The guy told the woman that everything was fine. Li felt very embarrassed. She told the guy not to do that again. Yuan replied to his girlfriend that she knew perfectly well how he felt about her. The main character told the hostess that her food was simply amazing. Li told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that she had a few questions for him. Yuan answered his partner that he was listening to her questions. She asked the guy in a dissatisfied voice how many girlfriends he had had. The main character answered his partner with a smile that he had only had 2 girlfriends. Li told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that he had a lot of girlfriends. She remembered to herself that her sister had never dated anyone before. The main character slyly thought that if his partner found out about his other women, she would feel bad. The girl at the table asked the protagonist if he had any brothers or sisters. Yuan revealed details about his younger sister. 10 minutes later, the protagonist happily thought that the interrogation was finally over. He realized that the teacher had told his sister about him. The main character was sitting at the table. He was looking closely at the girls. They were talking to each other. Yuan decided that the teacher's attitude towards him was getting better. He extended his leg towards her under the table. Li looked at the guy with concern. She was unhappy because he was hitting on her next to her sister. The hostess jumped up near the table. She told her partners that they could eat their food for now. She would come and wash the fruit. Yuan picked up his phone. He told the woman that she could rest. He would leave after dinner, and there was no need to wash the fruit. Lee didn't understand her sister's behavior. She thought that a woman should be happy when her beloved boyfriend is around. Out loud, she suggested to the guy to stay a little longer. Yuan jumped to his feet. He told the girl that he had to leave. He still had things to do. The guy left the apartment. Lee stretched tiredly. She advised her sister to test the guy some more. The hostess remembered how the main character had harassed her. She was unhappy with his behavior. The protagonist was walking through the apartment, leading his girlfriend by the hand. The girl asked him with displeasure, "What's the rush?" Yuan asked his partner if she still had her business suit. The protagonist opened a drawer with clothes. He reminded his girlfriend that she had worn some decent makeup that day. She had also told him earlier to trust her character. Zhao put on her business suit and glasses. She asked her friend with displeasure, "Why are all guys like this?" He told her in a sly voice that she would understand it someday. Yuan hugged and kissed his shy girlfriend. Half an hour later, the girl's affection for the protagonist increased to 90 points. The system informed the boy that he would receive a reward. The system informed the boy that he had received a car loan and an exclusive skill purchase coupon. Yuan decided to see for himself what this legendary male weapon was. He tapped the system window. She told her boyfriend that everything was different now. Yuan turned to his girlfriend and asked what was different for her now. Zhao told her boyfriend that everything was different now. The main character looked at the girl and told her in a gentle voice that, in the future, he would surprise her even more. The protagonist lay on the bed and looked up. He thoughtfully decided to see what was so interesting about the exclusive skill set. The owner reached out to the system window. He saw a new entry-level barber skill. Yuan decided to activate a combat skill for himself. It would help him during the clash with the bandits. The boy happily thought to himself that if the teacher's TV broke, he could help her with his repair skills. Yuan realistically imagined telling a woman to call him if she had problems with her home appliances. The main character saw a woman approaching him with a disdainful look. The guy felt happy. He thought that the skill of repairing household appliances would suit him. The protagonist lay on the bed, wondering who would be the next of his girlfriends to reach affection level 90. The girl suddenly jumped up in bed. She was talking to her mother on the phone with great excitement. Zhang told her partner in a frightened voice to call her if anything happened. The protagonist jumped up. He put his hand on the girl's back and asked what had happened to her. Zhang told her friend with concern that her father had suffered a stroke from drinking. His blood pressure jumped sharply. Zhao burst into tears and put her hands to her face. She said in a sad voice that if she had gone home, her father wouldn't have gotten angry and drunk. Yuan calmed his friend down. He said he could take her home now. The girl wiped the tears from her face with her hand. She said that she would return home tomorrow morning. The guy told his girlfriend that he would go with her. Zhang remembered that she wasn't in a formal relationship with her boyfriend. She didn't want to go home with him. She told her friend out loud that she could go home on her own. He hugged her. He said that he would help her solve all her problems. Zhang thanked the guy. The guy sat on the bed and read the note. The girl made him breakfast and went home. He happily thought that Zhang was the best of all the women he knew. At that moment, the guy's phone rang. He glanced at it and noticed that Fu Yingzi had called him. Fu excitedly told her boyfriend that she had already cleaned his office. He had to decide what design style he liked. Yuan told his friend to decide everything herself. She happily told the guy that she would call him back when she was ready. The main character glanced at his phone. He thought the girl was not bad. A guy approached the girl from the side and anxiously asked, "What should we do next?" Fu replied angrily to the student, telling him not to follow her. The fan extended his hand to his girlfriend. He told her nervously that he only wanted to help her. The girl walked past the guy and angrily demanded that he stop following her. The fan watched his girlfriend leave with tears in his eyes. He didn't understand why she had gone to the main character. Fu thought to herself that a business incubator was a loss-making venture. She calculated that the protagonist's capital must be at least 100 million. A student ran up to the side and shouted at the girl to wait. The girl imagined herself in the protagonist's office. He extended his hand to her and called out. Fu thought about it and decided that the guy had a lot of money and he clearly had more than one company. She needed to demonstrate her abilities at work. The girl was leading her mother by the hand. She told the woman that they needed to go to the hospital quickly. The owner told her daughter to come in and talk. The owner was sitting inside the room, happily drinking with a young man. The mother slyly told her daughter that her father was worried that she would be 27 next year and didn't have a boyfriend. The woman smiled slyly at the girl. She wanted to introduce the man to Dongqi Tao. He came from Zushi. The woman told the girl in a proud voice that Tao runs a company with an annual income of 10 million. He has a car and a house. The man in glasses said in a cheerful voice that he had a 5th series car. The delighted Zhao looked at the guest with admiration and said that this was all not bad. The man handed his hostess a very large gold ring as a gift. Tao held a gift in his hands. He hoped that the woman would like him. The guest said that the ring was worth more than 3,000. The woman told the hostess in a sly voice that Tao would definitely be a respectful take in the future. The girl grabbed her mother by the hands. She wanted to take her to the room to say something. The mother told her daughter in a disgruntled voice that, "Good housewives don't behave like that." Zhao responded by shouting at the woman that she and her father had simply deceived her. The mother told her daughter in a displeased voice that her Xiaoli was much younger than her, but she already had 2 children. Zhao replied in a displeased voice that she no longer wanted to talk to her. Zhao carefully read the message on her phone. She realized that the main character was going to her house. The girl looked happily at her mother. She said that a friend would soon be visiting her. The hostess asked who would be visiting them. A man or a woman? The man happily treated his guest to wine. Tao proposed a toast to the host. The protagonist entered the apartment. The girl asked him curiously, why did he buy so many things? Tao said he couldn't leave without gifts. The protagonist brought several packages into the apartment. He told the owners that he had brought them small gifts. Tao looked at the guest with displeasure. The woman angrily asked the girl what she was doing. The owner was very surprised when he realized that her daughter already had a boyfriend. The owner was also unhappy. The protagonist opened the box of jewelry. The girl anxiously asked her friend why he had brought so much stuff. The guy said in a joyful voice that Zhao was his girlfriend and in the future they would still be a family. The man and woman looked inside the boxes in amazement. A bright glow was emanating from inside. The main character said in a sly voice that he spent only 300,000 on gifts. People around looked at the jewelry in the boxes in amazement. The woman was shocked that the guy said he spent little money. The man asked his aunt in a displeased voice why she had told him earlier that the girl was single. The woman replied with displeasure that she had only just found out about it. The man told the woman in a disgruntled voice that the girl's boyfriend might be a fake. The aunt slyly replied to her partner that she would find out more about it. The main character and his girlfriend were standing at a table with boxes of jewelry lying on top. The aunt came up to the boy and asked him in a sly voice how old he was. Yuan answered the woman that he was 20 years old. The woman was surprised. She didn't understand why the girl was dating a guy who was much younger than her. The owner and his wife looked at the main character with interest. They remained silent. Yuan told his partners that he was studying in college and that he also invested in finance in certain industries. The aunt angrily asked the guy if he had a house. The protagonist replied to his partner that he and his girlfriend had 2 houses. Tao looked at the protagonist with displeasure. He decided the guy was definitely bluffing. The aunt glanced at the man and hinted that she would help him expose the guest. The woman told the guy in a sly voice that he shouldn't pretend to be someone he's not. She silently decided that the guy couldn't possibly have bought himself a house in Xinjiang worth more than $1 million. The owner and the hostess looked at the guy carefully. They didn't trust his words. Zhao held out her phone. She showed the woman a photo of the signed invoice and the house agreement. The man and woman looked closely at their daughter's phone. The aunt said in a displeased voice that the guy had even prepared a fake contract. Yuan was holding a phone in his hands. He told the girl that the house would be ready soon. He was ready to send her $1 million for the arrangement. Zhao excitedly told her friend that she wouldn't need a whole million to furnish her home. At this moment, a whole $1 million arrived in the girl's account. People around her looked at her phone in surprise. The aunt was very shocked. She couldn't believe that the guy just went and transferred $1 million to the girl. Tao looked at the guy with disbelief. He realized that the guest was very rich. Yuan told his girlfriend out loud that she could spend the rest of the money as she wished. The man began to pack his bags. He decided to leave and felt humiliated. The man stopped. He decided to himself that the guy could be a useful contact for him. He asked Yuan out loud, "Will his 2 houses really be worth a fortune?" The protagonist slyly told his partner that his girlfriend's house was worth $3 million. His villa was worth $10 million. Tao told the protagonist with surprise that his house was worth mere pennies compared to his own. His aunt stood to the side and listened attentively to the man's words. She was dissatisfied. Suddenly, the aunt smiled at the protagonist and said that she was a straightforward person. She apologized for what had happened earlier. Yuan looked closely at the woman and told her not to worry. They were a family now. The man smiled slyly at the guy. He told him not to be so formal. The woman smiled and told the protagonist that it was very thoughtful of him. Zhao's younger sister, Chen Xingyu, ran in from the side. She happily greeted the girl. Zhao pointed to the side with her hand and introduced the main character to her sister. Chen joyfully called the guy her brother-in-law. The protagonist smiled happily at the girl. He thought Chen looked like his older sister. The protagonist stood by the table with a bottle in his hand. He suggested a toast to the hosts. After dinner, they could look at the house in the car together. The aunt was surprised. She realized that the main character had bought his girlfriend's parents' real estate. The man and woman were very surprised. A man on the street asked the boy with displeasure, "Why did he buy them such an expensive car?" Chen happily explained to father that the boy simply wanted to show attention and respect. Zhao shook the woman's hand. She told her mother that she would now be coming home more often. The hostess happily told the girl that they would go cook dinner for the guest. The protagonist sat hugging a girl. She approached him and thanked him. Yuan wanted to ask his girlfriend something. The protagonist looked closely at the girl. He asked, "Will her parents really not allow them to sleep in the same room?" The girl turned away shyly. She told the protagonist that he would sleep in the guest room. She would come to him later. Zhao approached him when he was sleeping to wake him up. The guy woke up and grabbed his girlfriend by the hand. He said that he couldn't sleep without her. The main character hugged the girl. He joyfully told her that she understood him completely. At that moment, Chen woke up. She was wiping her face with her hands. The girl heard someone behind the door. She approached her with interest. Chen stood near the door and listened carefully. She saw the main character inside with his sister. The girl jumped back from the room door. She was shocked to see her sister with her friend. Chen abruptly ran down the corridor to the side. She told herself that she couldn't peek anymore. An hour and a half later, the girl returned to her sister's room. She carefully sat down next to her on the bed. Zhao woke up. She turned to her sister and asked why she was still awake. Chen told her sister in a frightened voice that she wanted to sleep hugging her tonight. Zhao happily hugged her sister and said that she really could hug her. Chen dozed off happily next to her sister. Zhao thought contentedly to herself that the girl had really grown up. The main character returned to the university. He walked into the office. I asked the guy if he would like the office's design. The protagonist sat down in a chair and looked around. He said that everything was fine for him. Yuan happily decided to himself that Fu would be the best candidate for the secretary position. The student handed the guy a pile of documents. They included the first part of the entrepreneurship applications and a business plan. The guy looked closely at the documents. He was studying the girl's profile. Yuan thought to himself with displeasure that ID photos were being edited so heavily these days. Yuan continued flipping through the documents. He told the girl he wouldn't look at the photo anymore. He needed to focus on the business plan. He saw that someone had suggested opening a cafe on campus and a pet store. The protagonist was surprised to read in a document that someone had proposed opening a lingerie store on campus. He decided that if anyone noticed, it would be his immediate social death. Yuan sat at the table with documents. He understood that he could not act recklessly. The protagonist imagined an old man chasing a girl on the seashore. Yuan decided that he was now increasing his girlfriend's favor and receiving more rewards. But he couldn't do that his whole life. Yuan saw his girlfriends very clearly in front of him. He didn't want to end his life like some old man. He needed to gain real business experience. The guy imagined himself standing on the roof of a tall building in a suit. He needed to break into business and turn a small company into a big one. Wan happily thought that he should turn his own company into a multinational conglomerate. The guy was sitting at the table with documents. He told his assistant in a stern voice that they needed to reschedule everything now. Fu told the guy in a worried voice that this was all due to the fact that the sample was very small. Yuan suggested to his partner that they increase the promotion of the university and the youth league committee. Fu told the guy in a thoughtful voice that tomorrow's radio station would play commercials in the morning and evening. The commercials would also be shown online. Yuan demanded that the girl prepare questions for the second round exam. Those participants who pass the initial screening will be able to take the second-level test. Fu took notes in a notebook. She told the guy that she would do all this soon. Yuan thanked her for her work. The guy happily thought to himself that thanks to the system, he earns and spends money. The guy happily thought to himself that girls like Fu would be able to help him in the future. The guy looked closely at the student near the table. He decided that he needed to win the girl's favor and look for capable subordinates. Inside the fitness center, Khan reminded the employee in a disgruntled voice that she was late for work. Liu was holding a bottle of drink in her hands. She reminded the man that she had sent him a message asking for a day off. The manager asked his subordinate with displeasure, "Did he really approve of the day off for her?" The girl reminded the man in a displeased voice that he had promised her a day off if she had lunch with him. The Khan shouted at his subordinate in an angry voice that he did not approve of her truancy. The manager angrily asked his subordinate if she knew how much money would be deducted for absenteeism. Liu stepped aside. She told the man that she would no longer work for him and was quitting. A guy approached the manager from the side and asked, "Is the girl really quitting?" Khan said in a displeased voice that Liu had attracted a lot of clients. If she was gone, it would be difficult for them to make a living. The athlete looked out the window onto the street. He told the manager to look at the girl's car. The manager looked out into the street in surprise. He angrily shouted that the girl had found herself a sponsor. The coach was sitting inside the car. She called the guy and asked him to console her. Yuan was sitting at the table. He told the girl that she could become his exclusive personal trainer. Liu slyly asked the guy what reward he was promising her. Yuan promised his partner that he would soon take her to training. There, she would receive several dozen gifts. The trainer smiled slyly at the guy and winked at him. She promised him that she would be waiting for him in an exclusive uniform. In the evening, the main character came to the girl. She opened the door for him and asked with displeasure, "Does he really still want to make it?" The protagonist turned away. He told the girl that he would leave if she didn't let him in. Liu became very worried. She shouted in a frightened voice at the guy not to leave. She grabbed the guy by the hand. He sternly reminded her that she herself didn't want to let him in. Liu nervously explained to her friend that she just wanted to create the right mood. Yuan looked at his friend and said that he wanted to see her sincere intentions. The coach looked happily at the guy and said that all her intentions were sincere. The protagonist looked closely at his girlfriend. He slyly said that he sensed a bit of sincerity from her, and for that, he wouldn't leave her. The main character walked into the apartment and hugged his girlfriend. The trainer slyly told the guy that he was her daddy and that she had been naughty and he should punish her. He asked in surprise what she had just called him. After resting, the girl turned around on the bed. She displeasedly told the guy that he hadn't given her the tenderness he promised. Yuan lay next to his girlfriend. He told her that he only used half the strength for her that he used with Zhao. Liu turned away. She told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that the difference from last time was very big. The protagonist carefully examined his body. He decided that he had lost a lot of weight recently. The guy glanced at his stats in the system window. His body weight had dropped and his health had decreased by 3%. He added that they could study tomorrow morning. Liu turned around and asked the guy with displeasure, "Does he really want to discuss plans for tomorrow now?" Yuan told his partner in an excited voice that he was too thin for her. She noticed that he was very skinny. Yuan threatened the girl in a displeased voice that next time after such words she would not be able to get up. The coach apologized to the guy in a frightened voice. Yuan slyly asked the girl to help him create a professional plan. The girl jumped up next to the bed. She told the guy that she would first take a shower and then draw up an exercise plan and diet. Yuan shouted after her friend that if the plan was ready, they would start tomorrow. The coach ran to the exit of the room. She promised the guy to go home and get some clothes and buy him a couple of suits. The system informed the owner of his new assignment. He needed to achieve perfect physique. The boy looked at the fitness panel in front of him. The protagonist kept a close eye on the system window. His mission concerned only weight and body fat percentage. Yuan carefully watched the system windows in front of him. They were all related to business management. Yuan thought happily to himself that in a month, he would be able to learn skills that would take years to acquire. The trainer came into the room with bags. She told the guy with a smile that she had prepared food for him for breakfast and lunch. Yuan carefully opened the box and looked at the food. He praised his trainer. The girl told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that in the future he would not be able to torment her like he did last night. Yuan slyly asked his girlfriend, "Didn't she feel anything different?" Liu told the guy with a smile that he should eat quickly and that they needed to go to training. Yuan walked through the gym with his trainer. She looked around carefully. The athlete near the barbell looked at the girl in surprise. He followed her with his eyes. The main character sat down on the weight training machine. The girl set the weight for him to exercise. The athlete looked at the girl with displeasure. He couldn't take his eyes off her. The athlete was working out his muscles. He couldn't understand why the girl was looking at the main character so intently. The trainer looked at the boy carefully. She placed her hand on him and told him not to use impulse during his movements. The client looked at the trainer in surprise. He recognized the main character and remembered that last time he'd given bags to another beauty. Liu handed the guy a bottle of water. She told him that he was already tired after several exercises. They would continue training little by little. The protagonist picked up a bottle of water and asked the girl when they were going to eat hot tofu. The man looked at the protagonist with displeasure. He was unhappy because the guy was having fun with his new girlfriend here. The client decided that Yuan was dating several women at the same time. He decided to expose his true colors. The man at the side approached the guy. He said in a sly voice that he was surprised that he was there too. Yuan jumped to his feet. He asked the man in a disgruntled voice what was wrong. The client calmly replied that he had only come up to say hello. The protagonist grabbed the bar with his hands. He told the man that he wanted to get back to training. The client reminded the protagonist in a sly voice that he could have taken the girl he went to the shopping center with. The man maliciously hoped to himself that the protagonist's companion would now be angry with him. He wanted to see this. Yuan continued training. He and his girlfriend remained unperturbed. A man ran up to the trainer from the side and reminded her in an angry voice about the main character's girlfriend. Yuan looked at Ho Jun's client with displeasure. He told him not to stick his nose where it didn't belong. Jun, standing on the side, was telling the trainer in a dissatisfied voice that the main character had another girlfriend. Liu turned around and told the man in a dissatisfied voice that she would have stayed with Yuan even if he was dating 3 ons at once. Liu put her hand on the guy's shoulder. She told him that he could spend his money however he wanted. The coach thought happily to herself that it didn't matter at all that the guy had bought his girlfriend 2 bags. He'd given her a 2 million yuan car. Jun got angry. He couldn't understand what kind of relationship the main character had with his girlfriend. Liu knew perfectly well that he was cheating on her. The trainer wiped sweat from the protagonist's face. In a displeased voice, she told the man to leave and not distract them from their training. Jun ran away. He said to himself in an angry voice that there were strange people in front of him. The trainer stood next to the guy. The protagonist thought that Liu was his best assistant. The girl suggested he continue. 2 hours later, the tired guy was sitting on the bench. Trainer Eshe told him they'd need to increase the intensity tomorrow. Yuan held a towel to his head. He told her he increases the intensity at night and she during the day. Liu glanced slyly at the guy. She told him that he had been introduced to movements and exercise machines today. After that, he needed to gain weight. They entered the shower, and he noticed that at least it was quiet here. Liu in a robe told the protagonist that he could return to university tomorrow. Wan stood near the mirror. He told his girlfriend that she should stay with him here. He had plans for the evening. Liu told the guy in a sly voice that she would rather return to her small apartment. The girl's affection for the main character increased. She looked at him happily. Yuan looked closely at his companion. Her affection had increased by 2 levels. The guy was curious about what reward he would receive from the system. The main character went out into the corridor. He saw a girl there with a guy named Funnum. Yuan began to open the door to the office. Fu justified herself to the protagonist. She said the student was constantly following her and didn't want to stop. Fan explained that he just wanted to help. The more people there were, the sooner they would finish everything. Yuan turned around with displeasure and told the student that he could not help them in any way. After this, the main character abruptly closed the door in front of the student. Fan closed his eyes in fear. The guy stood near the office door. He was unhappy that he was the main character inside, along with the girl behind the closed blinds. Fan very realistically imagined what it would be like for Yuan to hug his girlfriend. The protagonist sat in a chair near the table. He asked the girl how the company was going. Fu told the guy that she had placed advertising banners everywhere. He would need more time for a new business development plan. Yuan told his partner that he wanted to create another wave of advertising that would increase his popularity. The student asked the guy how exactly he wanted to do this. She needed to team up with someone else. Yuan demanded that the girl connect him with the entrepreneurship database. Exchange students should know he invested money in this. Fu should have published several posts with the topic, investing money. The girl looked at her documents with interest. She said they would gradually publish information and increase interest. Then, eventually, the main character would appear. Yuan told his partner that his popularity would skyrocket this way. The number of offers would increase. Ultimately, they would be able to select the most promising entrepreneurial projects. The guy thought to himself that after investing 10 million, he would receive a profession from the system as a reward. The protagonist at the table told the girl that in order to achieve the best effect, nothing could be disclosed. Fu told her partner that they would first post from unofficial accounts. Then, using secondary accounts, they would increase interest. The protagonist was pleased. He told the girl that they would now talk about her affairs. Yuan looked at the girl and asked what she wanted to get from him. Ugh. She thought sadly to herself that the guy wasn't interested in her at all. The student slyly told the guy that she wanted to follow him. As a result, she would be able to earn more than at a regular job. The main character asked his partner how much more money she wanted to receive. Fu told her partner in a trembling voice that she wanted to earn 8,000 yuan. The protagonist confidently told the girl that he would give her another 2,000 rubles to make her salary a full one. If she did a good job, she would receive bonuses and incentives. The fan behind the door angrily asked the girl if she had finished the conversation yet. The protagonist jumped to his feet. He said that this weirdo really brings men's pride to the bottom. The student wanted to go out into the hallway and talk to the guy. Yuan stood up. He told his partner that they would sacrifice a little time and solve this problem once and for all. He kissed her. After that, they got ready to go out. Yuan hugged the girl and left the office. He told her that they needed to put a sign on the door saying that the freaks weren't allowed in. The fan looked angrily at the girl in the doorway and asked with concern, "What was going on?" Fu looked at the student with displeasure. She said that she already had a boyfriend. He shouldn't look for her anymore. The fan angrily extended his finger forward. He angrily asked the student when they started dating. Fu sternly demanded that the student keep his distance from her. Otherwise, she would feel uncomfortable with Yuan. Fan sadly fell to the ground. He couldn't believe that this could happen. The protagonist stood next to his girlfriend. They watched the student leave down the corridor. Yuan glared at Fan as he left. He thought to himself that money rules the world. Fu looked at the main character in surprise. She asked him, "Is this enough?" Yuan abruptly pulled his hand away. He promised her that the student would not bother her anymore. He was getting ready to leave. Fu stood alone and looked with great sadness after the departing protagonist. Yuan collapsed on the bed. He thought she was good enough to be his secretary, but he wasn't ready to manage an entire company. The protagonist reached his finger toward the system window. He decided to activate all knowledge modules and level up. The owner glanced closely at the system window. He thoughtfully decided that finishing all of this in a month would be difficult for him. The protagonist recalled that his consultant had a double degree. The girl's first major was business. The guy received a message on his phone. He saw that Miss Lin had invited him to have a drink that evening. Yuan texted his partner that he could see her tomorrow evening. The girl sat at the bar with a glass in her hand. She had another long day to wait. She ran into the room in a bright outfit and with a bag in her hand. She slyly asked the guy, "What does she look like?" Yuan glanced happily at his girlfriend. He said that Hugh always looks amazing. He thought that girls should be standing in line to meet him. Yuan glanced at his girlfriend with interest. Her affection rose to 93 units. The guy told his surprised girlfriend that he could buy her a house this weekend. Hugh was delighted. She hugged her friend cheerfully and said that she loved him. Hugh returned to the room the next day. She opened the door and saw students sitting inside. They were discussing materials about a new startup incubator. The girl told her friend with admiration that the guy actually invested 10 million. The student glanced at her phone. She said that the rich kids here spend money. None of them can invest like Entron. The student shouted loudly that she wanted to tell everyone the truth. Hugh reminded her friend that the protagonist had told everyone not to reveal anything yet. The student told her friend in a sly voice that she was lucky. She managed to hook up with a rich man. She wanted to get a job as a maid for the main character. Hugh asked her friend with interest, "Does she really want to be a live-in maid?" The student nervously asked her partner, "Would Yuen really want someone like her?" She glanced slyly at the girl and said that for her, a good night had been hot. Hugh angrily asked the student to stop teasing. The girl angrily asked her partner whether she liked it or not. Hugh displeasedly told her friend that she was clingy. A student ran up to Yu Ping in the library and told her that a student had invested 10 million in a startup incubator. Ping sat in a chair and said to her partner with displeasure, "Are they really going to believe the rumors on the internet?" The girl said joyfully that such an investor must have a fortune of 100 million. She would very much like to meet such a rich man. Pin told her friend in a disgruntled voice that a rich man wouldn't even look at her. The student said thoughtfully that a guy with that kind of money wouldn't hide. He'd brag nonstop. Ping told her friend that the main character doesn't have a lot of money, but he's terribly smug. The girl remembered that Yuan had shown them his attitude the other day when they said a few words to him. At this time, rumors were spreading like wildfire across the campus. All the students were looking at their phones. The protagonist got out of the car and opened the door. He called the consultant and asked for help. The girl asked the guy with displeasure, "What is he up to this time?" Yun got into the car and prepared to fasten his seatbelt. He told his partner that he wanted to take up training this time. She promised him she agreed. The main character was racing along the highway in a car. She asked the guy if he was really going to do his dirty deeds again. Yuan answered his partner that this time he wouldn't do anything. Xiao opened the door and demanded that the guy promise her that everything would be different from last time. Yuan told his partner that he promised her. The hostess asked the guy again if he was absolutely sure. Yuan replied that he was 100% sure. The teacher showed the main character a college textbook. She highlighted key points in the first 3 chapters. The boy picked up the book. Xiao told him that he should not only remember the information, but also connect it with real-life situations. This should help. The main character sat at a table and attentively read a book. A teacher sat to the side and watched him. Xiu sternly told the guy not to look at her. He had to read the book. The main character looked at the girl happily. He said that she was much more interesting than the book. Xiao reminded the guy in an angry and displeased voice that he only came here to study. The guy approached Xiao. He told her in an insistent voice that he wanted her to be his girlfriend. The teacher jumped to her feet abruptly. She shouted at the boy not to talk nonsense. He hugged her and said he was serious. Xiao angrily warned the guest that her sister was sleeping in the other room. Yuan slyly suggested to his friend that they could show her sister that they were now officially together. Xiao angrily demanded that the guy let her go. She wouldn't agree to anything. He kissed the teacher and said that she would definitely agree. Xiao looked at the guy with displeasure. She told him not to let all this happen here. A door to the next room opened on the side, and a woman entered the room and looked ahead in surprise. The girl looked at the protagonist and her sister in surprise. She didn't understand what was happening here. I left the room and closed the door. The main character and his girlfriend felt very embarrassed. Xiao glared at the protagonist. She shouted at him that her younger sister saw everything. The protagonist told his embarrassed friend that it would be better if her sister found out everything now. Xiao reminded her friend in a disgruntled voice that she hadn't even agreed to be his girlfriend. She didn't know how to explain everything to her sister. The main character hugged the teacher. He asked her excitedly if she liked him. Xiao's affection for the protagonist grew. She didn't know exactly what she should answer him. The protagonist happily thought to himself that for the girl, only time and effort would prove his sincerity. Out loud, he told her that he would not give up. Xiao looked at the guy carefully and questioningly. She was considering his words. The guy headed for the exit and grabbed the door handle with his hands. He told his girlfriend that they would see each other next time. Xiao told her sister in a dissatisfied voice that she could now leave the room. Meng looked carefully at the door. I came into the room. She asked her sister if she was finished with the guy. At that moment, the girl picked up a book from the floor. Meng sat next to her sister. She said they could call the main character brother-in-law. Xiao told her partner that she and the guy weren't officially related. The girl angrily asked her sister how they had managed to get to this point. Xiao replied to her partner that they hadn't reached the end yet. Men asked her sister what she thought about all this. Xiao turned to the side thoughtfully. The girl decided with displeasure that her sister had already fallen in love with the main character. She just hadn't realized it yet. That same evening, the protagonist arrived at the cafe to see his girlfriend. She was sitting alone at a table. Lin sat at a table with a drink and glanced at the protagonist. She said she had been in a bad mood lately. She thought she had disturbed her friend. Yuan sat down at the table. He anxiously asked Mrs. Ling if everything was okay with her. She didn't look happy. Lin told the protagonist with displeasure that her husband, Tan, often doesn't return all night and smells of other women. The girl looked sadly into her glass of drink. She thought that if her husband was busy, she could have a drink with someone. Lin asked the protagonist if Chen Na was really his girlfriend. Yuan replied to his partner that it was possible to say so. The protagonist's partner asked if she knew him and that he was drinking with her. Yuan explained to Lin that his girlfriend wouldn't mind their meeting. Lin looked at the protagonist with interest. She thought that she wouldn't want to get involved in someone's relationship. The girl at the table shyly asked the main character to hug her at least once. Yuan looked slyly at his partner and told her to come to him. The girl got up from her seat and sat down next to the guy. He hugged her and asked if her husband knew that she was drinking with him here. Lin kissed the protagonist and asked him not to mention her husband anymore. The protagonist hugged the girl. He felt like he was really becoming that kind of guy. Lin pushed the protagonist aside. She told him fearfully that she couldn't. Yuan asked his partner with displeasure. Is she really asking him to stop? She said it would help him relax, and she felt a tremendous sense of relief in her body. She decided that this is what heaven felt like. He looked at the girl carefully. He asked her not to stand near him. The system informed the owner that he had received rewards for the girl's affection becoming greater than 60. The guy reached out his hand to the system window. He wanted to look at his awards. Wen read on the window that he had received a lottery ticket called Perfect Life. He could now receive random rewards and bonus cards. Lin told the guy in a shy voice that she had never felt so happy after a hug before. She looked slyly at the guy and said that it was time for her to go home. Yuan was very surprised when he realized that the girl was happy after the hug. The protagonist stood near the mirror and read a message. It was a screenshot of the comments that Fu had sent him. The guy put his phone aside. He decided to first find out what surprises the system had in store for him. The system informed the owner that he had 2 lottery tickets. It offered to use them. Wen was delighted when he saw the shop in front of him in the elegant Yunqi garden. The rent would bring him a large profit. The main character reached out his finger to the system window and activated it. The system informed the owner that he had gained 2 attribute adjustment points for his fitness parameters. Yuan happily thought to himself that he could now quickly change his body fat percentage or weight. As a result, he would quickly complete his fitness routine. The protagonist pointed his hand at the system window. He decided to gain weight for himself as quickly as possible. A process of change began in the boy's body. He looked ahead with great excitement. The protagonist carefully examined his body. He had gained 5 kilograms of muscle mass. It wasn't enough, but it was already noticeable. Yan looked away. He imagined her looking at him from the side, admiring him. The protagonist joyfully saw what appeared to be admiring girls standing next to him. The guy decided that he needed to further expand his network. Yan reached his finger toward the system window. He planned to study and get closer to the consultant. With the help of the effective study map, he could get more topics for conversation with his girlfriend. In the following days, the main character worked out with his girlfriend in the gym without stopping. Yuan bought a Maserati for his girlfriend. He bought an SUV for himself. A crowd of students stood near the building. A job fair was taking place there. They all looked at the expensive cars in surprise. A guest in the university assembly hall asked a guy why he was there. His family should have their own company. A guy in an expensive suit explained to his partner that a good manager must constantly develop. The student anxiously asked her senior if she would be able to join his company if she couldn't find an internship. The guest looked at the girl carefully. He told her to send him her resume. The female students were very happy. They looked at the guy with admiring glances and thanked him. The guest looked happily at the junior students. He promised to help them in any way he could. The guests looked at the student with displeasure. They were unhappy because he came there to relax and flirt. The girl turned around. She slyly whispered to her friend that their eldest son was modest and capable. She explained that the main character only ran a cafe and hit on older women. The student turned away and told the girl that they needed to forget about the main character. She had lost respect for him. The elder joyfully invited the girl to dine with him after the fair. She happily agreed. At that moment, an SUV pulled up to the building. One of the students said angrily that cars were prohibited on campus. The guests around looked at the car in surprise. Someone shouted that it was a G-Class. Tan looked at the car with excitement. She said that the student who had invested 10 million in the startup was driving it. The girl told her friend with interest that if this Boguch really was studying here, he was much more interesting than the other older students. The student happily hoped that she would be able to hook up with the guy. The protagonist opened the car window. He told his friends, Cao and Huang, that he wanted to take them to the dorm. The students were very surprised when they saw the main character behind the wheel. They realized that he was the famous rich man. The student, with tears in his eyes, told the protagonist that he had arrived on time at that time. Tan abruptly rushed forward toward the car. The student peered carefully through the car's side window. She decided the protagonist was just someone's driver. The guy on the side approached the girl and asked with displeasure what she was sniffing around for. The student opened the doors. He looked angrily at the girl and said, "They are getting inside the car now." The guests around looked at the departing car in surprise. They couldn't believe that the main character was rich. The surprised student couldn't understand where the Yuan got such a large amount of money from. Tan excitedly told her friend that the guy might forgive them if they apologized to him. 2 students were primping in their room. One of them told her friend that her main target would be the main character. She held a mirror in her hand. She said that Yuan was only 21 years old and he was tall and handsome. The girl was sitting on the bed. She shouted to them that she had found the main character's contact information. The student approached the bed and reminded her friend that she already had a boyfriend. Her partner slyly told the girl that she would break up with her boyfriend if the protagonist gave her a chance. A student, Longjin Chang, entered the room. She called Fu to her in an excited voice. Fu was sitting at the table. She turned around and asked Chan with concern what had happened to her. Chan asked her friend to introduce her to the main character. The student suspiciously asked her partner why she had become interested in entrepreneurship. The student told her partner in a sly voice that the job market wasn't endless. They needed to prepare in advance. Fu looked closely at her partner. She even believed her for a second. Fu, I imagined Chan being next to the main character. This girl had a perfect figure and a cute face. Fu thought with displeasure that it looked as if she was choosing concubines for the main character. She needed to pull herself together. The student was sitting and reading messages on his phone. He told the protagonist that his phone was ringing off the hook and that he could check it. Yuan lay on the bed. He told his friend in a dissatisfied voice that he felt somehow disgusted. The student turned around and told the protagonist that he had been joined by a lot of girls, and he was disgusted. Yuan showed his friend his phone and said that he had also been joined by a lot of guys. The student told the protagonist in a dissatisfied voice that the girls who were writing to him were the ones who couldn't contact him. The protagonist stretched out on the bed. He told his friend to ignore the girls. A friend told the protagonist in a dissatisfied voice that without him, they lived in complete loneliness. And now he himself has become like a celebrity. The system informed the owner that for every 500 reputation points accumulated, he would receive a chance to win a lottery. Yuan saw that his current reputation was 33. The protagonist grabbed his phone. He decided to quickly contact his girlfriend. Ugh! The guy texted the girl and asked her to meet him in the office. Yuan asked his partner over the phone what she was doing now. She invited him to spend time together. The main character invited his girlfriend to his office at the university. She was supposed to wait for him there. The main character approached the door and told the students not to wait for him. As he was leaving, Yuan told his disgruntled friend that one day spring would come to his street too. Hugh ran up to her friend and immediately hugged him. She shouted that she missed him very much. Yuan suggested that they chat inside. The main character was leading the girl by the hand. Hugh excitedly told him that he had now become a celebrity. The girlfriend on the couch turned to the guy and said that his personal information had been leaked online. Yuan said thoughtfully that people's lives were very boring. The girl approached the window. She told her friend in a sly voice that guys should know how to protect themselves. Hugh closed the blinds. The protagonist asked her what the closed window had to do with it. Fu approached the office door and prepared to knock. She heard some noise from inside. The student listened attentively to the door. She realized that the conversation inside was anything but businesslike. The girl ran to the side and hid around the corner. She decided to guard the door so no one could hear what was happening inside. Fu. She bent down to the floor from fatigue. She felt like her legs were falling off. The office doors opened and Hugh came out. She walked forward down the corridor and noticed a student. Hugh glared at the girl. She decided that Fu should have realized that the main character belonged only to her. The secretary walked into the boss's office. She inquired about his work. Yuan praised his subordinate and said she was doing a great job. The buzz gradually increased. Fu told the protagonist that all of this happened thanks to his leadership. The protagonist told the girl to filter applications for the startup incubator during the selection process. They needed practical projects. Fu looked at the guy with great excitement and asked, "What will be the selection criteria?" Yuan demanded that his subordinate select people who reflected the new image of their university. They had another major advantage. The student asked the guy with displeasure, "What advantage do they have?" Yuan glanced slyly at his partner and said that their students were very beautiful. Fu thought to herself with displeasure that the boss spent a lot of money to find himself a girlfriend. The student asked her boss in a dissatisfied voice, "Is this really appropriate?" The main character suggested that his partner choose those participants who were good-looking. Fu promised her boss that she would sort the applications and then pass them on to him. Yuan asked his partner if she had finished developing the test for the second level of assessment. The girl told him that everything was ready. Fu realized with excitement that thanks to the test, it would be possible to filter out candidates without unnecessary noise. The secretary slyly suggested to the boss that they leak the answers to the preferred candidates so they could get through. Yuan told the assistant that this would be a smart idea. Fuxi imagined two girls in dark clothes standing next to her, arguing over which of them would be better. The student thought to herself with displeasure that if the candidates weren't suitable, they simply wouldn't be considered. She remembered that she was paid 10,000 a month. For her, loyalty was part of the job. Fu told the protagonist at the table that she wanted to introduce him to the first candidate. Yuan asked about the applicant's age. The girl excitedly explained to the main character that the applicant was her age, or even a little older. The main character asked his partner with displeasure about the candidate's age. Fu grabbed the phone in her hands. She frightenedly asked the guy for forgiveness. The secretary showed the protagonist a phone. It contained a photo of a contender named Little Dragon Girl. Yuan looked closely at the photo of a beautiful girl on his phone. He realized that he would become a dragon rider. Lin wrote a message to the protagonist. She invited him to see her that evening. Yuan remembered what girlfriend had told him last time. The main character asked his partner if she was sure she just wanted a drink. Yuan invited his girlfriend for a drink at 9 o'clock this evening. The girl was lying on the couch. She was happy because the guy immediately responded. The girl looked at her phone. She joyfully felt to herself that she was experiencing the thrill of first love. Lin fell asleep on the sofa. She was impatiently waiting for 9 o'clock in the evening to come as soon as possible. The protagonist approached his car. He saw that it was covered in a lot of messages. Yuan took the note from the car and began to read it. The girl wrote him her contact information. Two female students approached the main character from the side. They greeted him and asked him to give them a ride to the shops. Yuan opened the side door of the car. He told the girls there was no more room for them. The student anxiously asked the guy to add them as his online contacts. The protagonist told his companions that his contact list was full. He couldn't add anyone else. Two students stood to the side watching the protagonist's car. One of them said that Yuan was rich and just brushed off the girls. The guy told his friend that a car of that class costs 3 million. They would never earn that much in a lifetime. The partner replied thoughtfully that he wanted to go for a ride too. The student leaned aside. He asked his friend with displeasure if he had any dignity. The guy slyly held his hand out in front of him. He said that he too would swear allegiance if it meant financial freedom. The student thought for a moment. He told his friend in a sly voice that it wasn't such a bad idea. The main character was sitting at a table with his girlfriend at 9 in the evening. He asked her, "Were there really troubles at home again?" Ling closed her eyes. She told the guy that she wanted to ask him something. Yuan told his partner that she could ask. The girlfriend looked at the main character with a piercing blue gaze and asked, "Does he believe in love?" The partner demanded that the guy give her a precise answer. Yuan imagined himself next to his girlfriend. The main character saw a bunch of girls in front of him. In high school, he really believed in love. Lin told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that his answer was very vague. The girl's phone rang. She told her partner that she had called him about the air conditioner. The worker promised the customer that they could arrange a time to come. Lin told her partner in an excited voice that he could come by tomorrow morning or anytime during the day. The worker told the girl that he would call her tomorrow afternoon. The protagonist asked his partner if her air conditioner was broken. The girl told the guy that the air conditioner hadn't worked for a couple of days. She used a fan at night. Yan slyly told the girl that he himself was an expert in air conditioning repair. Lin excitedly asked her partner, "Does he really know how to fix an air conditioner?" The guy told the system that he wanted to use his last skill exchange card. The main character chose the skill of equipment repair for himself and confirmed his choice. Wen looked closely at his hands. They seemed more dexterous to him. The protagonist asked a girl at a table if her husband would be home. Lin answered the guy that her husband was not home. The main character came to his girlfriend's house. He started fiddling with the air conditioner on the wall. The girl was surprised that the guy came to her house to fix the air conditioner. It seemed strange to her. Yuan turned around and told his friend that the unit was dusty. It hadn't been cleaned for a long time. He'd clean the filter and everything would be fine. Lin looked at the guy suspiciously. She was surprised that he came to her only to clean the air conditioner. The girl turned away. She told the guy that she would quickly go and take a shower. 15 minutes later, the owner emerged from the shower. She was surprised to notice that the air conditioner was working. Yuan gestured to his girlfriend. He said the air coming out of the machine was cold. Lin nervously told him she didn't even know how to thank him. The protagonist extended his hand to the girl. He was surprised because she wanted to thank him and didn't know how. She said she didn't agree. She was afraid that her husband might come back. The man was going up in the elevator. The doors opened and he said that he felt disgusted. The man walked down the corridor discontentedly. He muttered that the girl had refused him for a lot of money. The owner approached the door and prepared to open it. The girl realized with fright that the door creaked. Lin jumped up in bed in fright. The protagonist sat next to her, looking worried. The girl assumed that Zheng Xiangyong had returned home. Lin gestured to the protagonist to remain silent. If her husband found out about her infidelity, she would lose all her advantages during the divorce and division of property. Yuan approached the door and prepared to open it. A frightened girl was lying on the bed. Lin looked at the guy with great fear. She couldn't understand how he remained calm in such a situation. Jean entered the apartment. He angrily shouted that the owner had left the air conditioner on and hadn't thought about the electricity. The owner approached a large tank with water. He said discontentedly that his wife was not even able to pour him water. Jen approached the door. He noticed with alarm that the girl had somehow locked herself from the inside. The protagonist approached the hostess. He told her to be quiet. She didn't want her husband to get hurt. The frightened girl covered her face with her hand. She was trying not to scream. Chang shouted to his wife through the door in a dissatisfied voice that he was late because he was involved in various activities. The man opened the door to the room wide. He was getting ready to go to bed. He should have more energy tomorrow. Jin fell tiredly onto the bed. He whispered to himself words about tomorrow evening at the bar. The owner snored on the bed. Lin, in the next room, shouted at the protagonist to be quiet. Yuan happily told his friend that her husband snored very loudly. He unconsciously picked up the rhythm. Zhang sat up in bed the next morning with a headache. He decided the alcohol at the bar that night must have been bad. Lin was standing near the stove and preparing breakfast. At this time, her husband headed into the kitchen. The owner was surprised that his wife was cooking breakfast. She hadn't done this for 2 years. Zhang asked the girl in the kitchen how she slept well at night. Lin turned slyly and looked at her husband. She said that she felt just fine. Zhang looked at his wife suspiciously. He didn't understand why she had become so kind to him. The man decided that the woman had done something behind his back. He ran into the next room. The owner carefully examined the sheet on the bed. There were no hairs or marks on it. The owner looked into the trash can with interest. He didn't find anything suspicious there. Zhang walked into the kitchen. He told himself that he was probably just imagining things. His wife offered him something to eat. The owner asked the woman with displeasure if she had heard someone banging against the wall during the night. Lin told her husband that he had simply imagined it. She had slept very well. The man got ready to eat breakfast. He told his wife suspiciously that the air conditioner was completely fine. Lin prepared to open the milk carton. She told her husband that they had helped her fix the air conditioner. The hostess poured herself some milk into a glass. She thought the guy had fixed her air conditioner, and her heart too. At this time, Li Ying ran into the cafe. She was Zhou Wangting's best friend. The guest shouted to her friend, "What happened to her?" Wang told Li Ying in a dissatisfied voice that her ex-boyfriend was now living a better life. She felt like she was going to die. The girl sat down at the table. She asked her friend which ex she was talking about. Van explained that she meant the main character. Li Ying asked her friend with interest how the guy had gotten rich. Her partner explained in a disgruntled voice that the main character had spent $3 million on a house for some girl. He also bought a Porsche for his fitness trainer for $2 million. She asked the girl how she could be sure that all this was true. Van showed her partner her phone. The coach wrote about everything on social media. Li Ying read the news on her phone in surprise. Wang said to herself in a dissatisfied voice that all of this should have belonged to her. Van grabbed her head with her hands. She decided she was definitely out of her mind when she dumped the main character. The guy had become rich and she couldn't sleep. Li Ying reassured her friend. She reminded her that she worked for an airline. It was easy to find a rich person there. Van told her partner in an angry voice that she wouldn't even look at a person who had less than 10 million. The girl suddenly jumped up near the table. She told her friend that she wanted to get back together with the main character. Van said in a disgruntled voice that the guy had blocked her in the chat. She couldn't find him at the university. Li Ying advised her friend to move on with her life and lower her standards a little. Van worriedly told her friend that she couldn't lower her standards. She felt really bad when she imagined the main character showering his girlfriends with money. The girl grabbed her friend by the hand and pulled her towards the cafe exit. She wanted to find the main character together. Li Ying ran after her friend. She asked her friends to give her the number of a mental hospital. Her best friend went crazy. The girl was inside the building at the Junyu Hotel. She was looking down through a large glass window. The protagonist entered the room. He asked the trainer what she was doing standing to the side and looking at the river. Liu turned and looked closely at the guy. She told him that his weight gain and mouse were happening faster than she expected. The protagonist stepped aside and grabbed the handle in the shower. He told the girl that he was not like the others. Yuan stood inside the shower. Thanks to training, his immunity and brain activity improved. The guy looked at the trainer. He told her not to wait for him tonight. He had other plans. Liu looked slyly at the guy and said that he could leave. She would wait for a call from him. The protagonist was driving a car. He remembered that she, Hugh, had been next to him, one of the very first. She had received only 2 bags and a few promises from him. He decided to repay his girlfriend properly today. In a restaurant, a woman at a table asked a girl if she really came here often with her classmates. Hugh said cheerfully that she comes here with her friends. She asked her sister and brother-in-law to eat more. A guy named Zhang Zheng told the girl that she should think about an internship. Sitting next to him was Minhui's cousin, Song Huan. Min told the guy that the internships would start next semester. She hadn't thought about work yet. Zhang advised his partner to plan everything carefully. Min looked at her sister and said that she understood everything. Sun looked at the girl and asked if she had a boyfriend. Zhang invited the girl to meet her friend from Xiangda University. Min looked slyly at her partners and said that she already had a boyfriend. She hadn't told her family about it yet. Zhang explained to the student in a dissatisfied voice that if she chose the first guy she came across, life would be more difficult after graduation. Zhang explained to his partner that she hadn't worked yet. Graduates from her university often got jobs at small companies with minimum wages. At least his cousin had prospects. Xiao looked at her friend. She explained to him that the girl had her own plans. Zhang said in a displeased voice that he was worried that Ming's boyfriend wouldn't be good enough for her. Hugh looked at her partners with a smile. She told them not to worry about her anymore. The girl jumped up near the table. She told her sister that she needed to leave early. Xiao asked her partner if she really had plans for the day. Min said in a sly voice that today she would go with her boyfriend so that he could buy her a house. Xiao and his friend were surprised when they heard the words about buying a house. Zhang said in a frightened voice that no normal family would buy a house for a girl before marriage. At that moment, an SUV pulled up to the restaurant. The main character got out. The girl pointed out the window to the street. The protagonist walked into a restaurant. He asked his girlfriend if she was ready to go. She pointed out her cousin and brother-in-law to the guy. The protagonist told his partners he couldn't have lunch with them today. He promised his girlfriend he'd buy him a house. Xiao excitedly told him they'd have another opportunity to do that in the future. Zhang stood behind and watched the protagonist with surprise. He didn't believe that the guy could buy a house for his girlfriend. Xiao told her fiancé in a dissatisfied voice that this was a shame and disgrace for him. Zhang felt a very strong embarrassment in his body. The protagonist handed his girlfriend a real estate contract. He paid over 3 million. The delighted girl didn't even know what to say to her friend. Yuan happily calculated to himself that thanks to the deal he was able to earn himself more than 31 million. Yuan told his girlfriend in a sly voice that he would send her Japanese films so she would definitely remember them. The girl's sympathy towards the main character increased. She asked him angrily to stop. Yuan thought happily to himself that he would be able to advance his girlfriend's affections tonight. The girl was lying on the bed and writing messages to the main character. She wanted to contact him. Tan was unhappy because the guy didn't want to answer her even once. She put her hand to her head. A female student entered the room. She told the girls not to follow the main character. The girl was left in the room completely alone. She heard that she had gone to the library to draw up a business plan. The student climbed down the stairs from her bed. She thought any girl would fall for a billionaire like the main character. She decided to go to the computer and work on her business plan. Yun sat on the bed with his phone in his hand. He asked his girlfriend if she had thought about her future. Hugh asked her friend if she should apply for a business incubator. The protagonist looked happily at his girlfriend. He promised her that he would organize something for her. Yuan realized that his girlfriend had a very strong sense of possessiveness. He showed her the phone and told her to choose her own teacher for technology. Min asked the guy in surprise, "How did he know so many names?" Yuan told his partner that he found all these names on the internet. He hadn't known anyone before. Hugh reached forward for the phone. She told the guy that she would choose one teacher with her eyes closed. 20 minutes later, the protagonist was lying on the bed. Hugh asked him which way he liked best. The main character thought that he would be fine if there were 10 more goal-oriented beauties like this girl around him. The next morning, the protagonist's phone rang. A friend asked Yuan to come quickly. Yuan asked Li Yu-han in a displeased voice, "What happened?" Khan nervously shouted to his partner over the phone that they didn't have time to talk. He asked his friend to rush to the location. The main character held the phone and looked at it in bewilderment. He didn't understand what was happening. The protagonist was driving through the city. Han told his friend on the phone that the location had been changed and they needed to go to Suyun Cave. Yuan was unhappy about the change. Han told his friend on the phone that he had just started his shift, but his friends dragged him to this place. He wasn't particularly interested. Yuan sternly demanded that his friend come to Suyun Cave and not be late. The protagonist stopped near a car in the city. He knew that Suyun Cave was located near the consultant's workplace. He could have run into this woman. A guy in a blue shirt approached from the side. He suggested the protagonist go up to the maintenance department and recommended Technician 98. Yuan told his partner in a dissatisfied voice that he had a better technician from the university. The student looked at the car in surprise. He asked the protagonist, "Where did he buy it from?" The student told the protagonist in a sly voice that he was very rich. Yuan asked his friend why he had invited him. The Khan smiled slyly at the protagonist and suggested they discuss everything inside. He mentioned Technician 98 again. Two girls were standing on the street. One of them asked her companion with displeasure, "Is this really the main character in front of them?" Khan stood opposite his friend and continued repeating his words about Technique 98. Yuan looked ahead and noticed a consultant approaching him. Li Xiao stood next to his sister. They looked at the guy from the side with great displeasure. The protagonist waved to the woman. He said it was an unexpected and pleasant meeting. The girl picked up her sister and led her aside. The main character shouted to the Onam to wait for him. Yuan excitedly told his Owens that if they were going home, he could help them. I told the main character in a dissatisfied voice that he had no shame at all if he came to such a place. Yuan calmly explained to the girl that she was mistaken. He was just waiting for someone here. I angrily told the guy that his sister had prepared a gift for him as a thank you for the bag. And he came to such a place. Meng grabbed her sister's hand to lead her away. Li Xiao's sympathy for the main character began to sharply decline. Khan from the side approached his friend and excitedly said that he could explain everything to his new girlfriend. The main character told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that the girl was currently upset and would not believe his words. The Khan looked closely after the departing woman. He told the protagonist that he had never seen her before. Yuan explained to his friend that the woman was his consultant. She also taught business English. The protagonist turned around and explained to his friend that he would make it up to the woman later. They needed to find a place to talk. Chang smiled at the cafe and greeted the protagonist. She was glad that he came. Yuan pointed at his friend. He ordered drinks from the girl behind the counter. The con looked very closely at the worker behind the counter. He asked the protagonist, "Who is this girl?" The guy concentrated and remembered that he had seen the girl from the cafe somewhere before. Yuan reminded his partner about the Nanjing restaurant and Li Guangyao's cousin's girlfriend. Khan asked his friend in surprise, could he really have seduced this girl? Yuan explained cheerfully to his partner that it was simply mutual attraction. The Khan told his friend with admiration that he was simultaneously dating his teacher and another guy's girlfriend. The protagonist told his surprised friend that he was handing over control of the bar to him. His partner responded with surprise that he couldn't manage without Soviet Yuan. The main character looked closely at his partner and said that he believed in him. The Khan looked at the guy with great excitement and promised that he would do everything for him and would not let him down. The girl brought coffee in a glass and put it on the table. The guy happily thanked her. Jo stood with a tray in her hands. She looked at the protagonist with great attention and love. The girl told her friend in an excited voice that his t-shirt was wrinkled. Yuan carefully examined his clothes. Jay reached out to the guy's clothes and told him to straighten them. Han looked at his friend and thought that today, with him, he felt a taste of life. The protagonist walked through the door with his girlfriend, hugging her. Zhao told her friend that she wanted to hire Xing Yu as a helper at the cafe. The guy replied that he didn't mind. She told the protagonist that she was going to take a shower now after a long day at work. Yuan held the phone in his hands. He decided to call the consultant and explain everything to her as quickly as possible. The main character held the phone in his hands. He waited until it rang. No one answered. The guy realized that the woman didn't want to pick up the phone. She also didn't answer him in the chat. I told my sister in a displeased voice to block the main character. The phone was lying on the nightstand and ringing. I hugged my sister and told her not to cry. They saw the main character's true face today. She said in a dissatisfied voice that she didn't understand why guys went to such places. I calmly explained to the woman that most guys are just like that. Xiao asked her sister why everything was happening this way. Her partner happily replied that guys often seek thrills. There are girls who know how to make them happy. Xiao vividly remembered how the main character kissed and hugged her, and she pushed him away. The teacher said in a dissatisfied voice that she had been pushing the guy away for a very long time. She sat and sorrowfully repeated that it was all her fault. Ming rushed to her sister and shouted at her not to make anything up anymore. The sister hugged the woman and reminded her what happened to her the last time she fell in love. Li Xiao looked at the girl carefully and piercingly. She realized that her sister was right. Zhao realized that she couldn't just let herself fall in love. She needed to continue to control herself. The protagonist was reading messages on his phone. All his former classmates were adding him as friends. She sent the guy a lot of messages along with a photo. The main character decided to meet this girl in person. Yuan sent his partner a message that he was busy and they could talk later. A girl came up from the side. She looked at the main character and joyfully called him by name. Yuan glanced at his girlfriend. Zhao was dressed in a stylish business suit and wore glasses. She approached the guy and slyly asked if he liked her. Yuan told the girl that she had destroyed his composure. Yuan hugged his girlfriend and said that today she was simply amazing. She asked her partner if he really played sports. Yuan suggested the girl move to the sofa. He warned that he would now be a free exercise machine for her. A group of students burst into the room. They shouted at the woman that they wanted to apply for a startup and a business proposal. There was a whole pile of documents around the woman. The worker couldn't understand why there were so many people wanting to submit documents. The main character was working out on a treadmill at the gym when his phone rang. Liu looked closely at the protagonist's phone. She asked who the little secretary was who had called him. Yuan reached for the treadmill controls. His partner told him that she had received the first applications for the startup. There were 653 in total. The protagonist asked his partner what the ratio of men to women was. The secretary told the guy that 628 girls and 25 guys had registered. Yuan demanded that his subordinate take charge of the selection. A woman stood near the entrance and drove away students. Fu asked the boss with fear, "Does she really have to tell all the guys now?" There was a pile of documents on the table. The protagonist told his partner that she could accept a good business offer from the guy. Yuan looked closely at his phone. He decided that he needed to cultivate talent. The system would later give him a whole company. The trainer, standing to the side, told the guy in a disgruntled voice that he still hadn't answered her. Yuan explained to his partner that a subordinate from the university had called him. Liu told her friend in a displeased voice that she had only asked him. The protagonist reassured the girl and said that he and his girlfriend were merely business-related. The system informed the owner that he had a third one with a favor rating above 90. He was supposed to receive a reward. Yuan glanced sideways at the coach. After that, he realized that it was thanks to her that he received the bonus. The protagonist stood near the system window and extended his hand toward it. He still had one exclusive skill set from last time. He decided to activate the first reward. Yuan felt a warmth in his lower abdomen. A very bright glow appeared near his body. The protagonist joyfully looked at the glow in front of him. He had distinct sensations. Yuan looked at his friend and told her to come over to him for a second. The coach asked what happened. The main character grabbed his girlfriend and started to lead her upstairs. Liu couldn't understand what was happening. Liu was lying on the bed. The main character stroked her head and said that he needed to go. Something happened. The guy stood near the door and got ready to leave. He decided that his other girlfriends should also get used to his new weapon. The protagonist got into the car. He remembered that the consultant hadn't answered his phone. He needed to prove to the woman that he was innocent. Yuan knocked on the front door with all his might. The woman asked who had come to see her. Yuan told the owner that it was the neighbor from downstairs. The woman opened the door and looked at the guy with displeasure. She said he had fooled her. Yuan put his hand on the door. He told the hostess that she should let him inside. Xiao asked the guy in a dissatisfied voice what he wanted to do in her apartment. The main character told the girl through the door that they needed to talk. She misunderstood everything yesterday. The hostess looked at the guy in response and said angrily that he had come to such a place. Yuan excitedly told his partner that all of this was indeed true. Xiao told her friend in a dissatisfied voice that she didn't want to listen to his excuses. Yuan explained to his girlfriend through the door that he only came to the club because his friend invited him there. Xiao asked the main character with suspicion, "Is it possible that he was just waiting for his friend in that place?" Yuan handed his girlfriend the phone with the messages. Khan told him to meet near the club. The owner stared intently at the phone in the guy's hands. The protagonist suggested she go and check the surveillance camera footage. The woman thought the protagonist's words sounded very convincing. Yuan slyly told his partner that she had completely misunderstood him. Xiao's sympathy for the main character increased. She asked him for forgiveness. Yuan noticed that the woman's favorability had increased by 3 points compared to before. The main character, in a sly voice, asked the woman for a drink of water in her apartment. Xiao shouted at the guy in a dissatisfied voice that he wanted to pull this trick on her again. The main character promised the hostess that he would leave her immediately after he took a glass of water. Xiao looked at the guest suspiciously. She asked, "Is all this really true?" Yuan answered the woman that it was absolutely true. The landlady prepared to close the door to the apartment. She told the guy to wait a little. The girl suddenly slammed the door in the protagonist's face. Yuan leaned back in surprise. A few seconds later, Xiao opened the door and handed the protagonist a bottle of water to drink. The guy reached for the bottle. He was surprised to notice that the girl was acting as if he were a wild animal to her. Yuan remained standing near the door with a bottle in his hand. He still couldn't leave. A woman approached the guy from the side and told him to take his time. Perfection cannot be rushed. The guy opened a bottle of water. He told the stranger that slow-witted people would eat other people's leftovers. The woman thought for a moment. She decided that young men these days were very sharp-tongued. But the guy had good looks and a good body. The protagonist walked outside to his car. She invited him to her place for the weekend. Yuan thought to himself that this trip had not been in vain for him. The partner called and informed the protagonist that all the work on his house was completed. He needed to come. Yuan replied that he was free now and would arrive soon. Su was sitting on the sidewalk near the house. After that, the main character drove up to her in a car. When he approached his girlfriend and asked with excitement how long she had been waiting for him, Su stood up and walked up to the guy. She said she hadn't been waiting for him for very long. Yuan asked her friend why she was so excited. The protagonist pointed to the side. He asked the girl to show him everything. Su told the guy to come inside. She wanted to explain everything to him in order. Inside, a girl showed the protagonist the details of the renovation. He could choose the style of floor tiles. Yuan walked with his companion through the courtyard. The design was made according to his requirements. The protagonist was walking through the grounds. He invited his companion to dinner. Su apologized to the client and said that she needed to do something at home that evening. The protagonist asked his companion what she should do. Su explained to the guy that she had to return home to cook for her mother and younger brother. The girl suddenly turned around and came close to the surprised guy. Yuan hugged Su. He said in a quiet voice that this little girl was quite gifted. The girl looked at the guy with great excitement and fear. She called him by name. It started raining heavily outside. The main character stood and held the girl by the shoulders. Yuan looked at his companion and said that it was raining cats and dogs. They needed to go inside the building. The main character covered the girl with his hand from above. She was shielding herself from the rain with her hands. The girl's clothes were completely wet. She shyly covered herself with her hands. The protagonist looked happily at his companion. He said that her appearance was very striking. The girl felt embarrassed. After that, she turned away and sneezed very sharply. He hugged her and said that this should help her not to catch a cold. Su glanced at the protagonist from the side with great attention. She felt her whole body tingling. Yuan asked the worker in a sly voice, "Is she really looking at him because he's handsome?" Su looked at the client with fear. She didn't know what to answer him now. Yuan looked at the girl carefully. She couldn't stand even the slightest teasing. He decided he had plenty of room to maneuver. The protagonist and his girlfriend went outside. The rain stopped, and he wanted to take the girl home. She asked the guy to take his hand off her body. Yuan jerked his hand away. He told the girl with concern that he was afraid she would freeze. The protagonist gave his girlfriend a ride to her house. She got out and thanked him. Yuan wanted to visit her for a while. Yuan walked behind his friend with bags in his hands. They were in a very poor neighborhood. Sue turned around and yelled at the guy that she wouldn't have time to entertain him. Yuan yelled at his girlfriend that she could do her own thing. He'd just hang around for a bit and then leave. People in the alley looked at the expensive car with great surprise. One woman said with surprise that Su Wei arrived with her boyfriend. Passers-by were happily chatting in front of them. One woman shouted happily that Su Wei had finally done it. She wouldn't have to live a hard life. Two women were talking among themselves about rich men. One of them didn't understand why the guy chose a girl whose father had died and whose mother was crippled. The man with the cigarette turned around with displeasure and shouted at the women to watch their words. The boy ran up to his sister and greeted her joyfully. Sue extended her hand to Xiao Jie and shouted that she would cook him dinner. The main character asked the girl in surprise, could it really have just been her younger brother? She introduced her friend to the boy. The younger brother cuddled up to his sister. Sue said with a smile that her brother was very shy. A woman with a cane walked out into the street. The girl asked her mother in fear, why did she go out? The landlady asked her daughter who was next to her. Sue introduced the main character to her mother. Yuan greeted the woman with a smile. The hostess looked at her daughter in surprise. She remembered that the girl had never walked guys home before. The woman told the protagonist that he had bought a lot of things. She invited him inside. Yuan agreed. Yuan went inside the apartment and sat down on a chair. She told him that she would cook food for him. Half an hour later, the young hostess came out with large plates in her hands. She told her companions to go eat. Jai was sitting at the table. He joyfully shouted that his sister's food was the best. A woman standing next to him told him that next time she would definitely prepare a decent main course. Yuan looked at the woman happily. He said that he was very pleased with the girl's home-cooked meal. The sister extended her hand to her little brother's face. Yuan looked at the girl and noticed that she had a unique aura. Sue from the alley looked after the guy. She shouted that he bought a lot of food and she wanted to give him his money back. The main character suddenly extended his hand to the girl and took the phone from her. Yen stepped aside. He waved to the girl and shouted that they would see each other next time. Sue looked at her phone in amazement. She saw that the guy had transferred 50,000 yuan to her. The young housewife looked out of her window onto the street. She shouted to the guy to wait. Yuan stood next to his car. He didn't know if the girl would be able to accept his money. He didn't see any affection points above her head. The guy was driving down an alley in a car. He had a feeling that he had lost something and it was coming back to him. Yuan called his secretary and shouted that she could continue. The girl told the guy the details of the list of participants over the phone. Yuan was driving the car. He told the girl that she would receive a bonus for the month. The protagonist happily thought that Friday was Lao Shin's birthday. He needed to go get a gift tomorrow. The guy decided to treat all his aunts equally. The neighbor approached the owner and asked if her daughter's boyfriend had really come to see her. The woman replied that the girl hadn't told her anything about it. The neighbor told her frightened and surprised partner that the guy had arrived in an expensive car. It cost around 2 or 3 million. The woman told her mistress in a sly voice that her daughter should get together with a guy. The mother turned away and said that she would not force her daughter to be with someone she didn't like. The neighbor excitedly told her partner that the guy was very interested in the girl. Therefore, it is imperative to convince her daughter otherwise. Two women were talking near the door of the house. They were talking about the main character's visit to his girlfriend. The owner ran into the apartment and slammed the door behind her. She thought about the conversation with her neighbor. The mother walked into the kitchen. She looked at her daughter near the table and said that she wanted to ask her something. The woman was washing the dishes. She asked the woman discontentedly what had happened. The housewife asked her daughter what her relationship with her boyfriend was like. Sue was wiping a plate. She told her mother that the guy just drove her home during the rain. Nothing happened between them. The mother sternly asked the girl, could it be that the client was interested in her? Sue remembered that the guy had been acting strange today. During their last meeting, there had been a beautiful woman next to the protagonist. The hostess stood behind her. She sternly asked her daughter what she thought of the guy. Sue looked at the woman. She explained that the guy was just an ordinary client of their company. The woman told her daughter that she shouldn't marry into a rich family just for them. Sue hugged her mother and happily said that she knew everything. The mother hugged her daughter and held her close. They were both silent and lost in thought. Sue recalled how the main character hugged her and protected her during the rain. The protagonist sat on the bed. She was sleeping next to him. Fu Jungmei called the guy. Yuan asked his partner with displeasure, "What's the matter?" Fu told the guy on the phone that she wanted to talk to him about her student Su Xiu Wei. The protagonist was sitting across from a woman at a table in a restaurant. He asked her what had happened to Su Fu. Su Fu told the guy that the girl had transferred his money back to him, but he hadn't accepted it. The protagonist picked up the cup. He told his partner that this was exactly how it happened. Fu told the guy that Su looked very worried, and she asked her about everything again. The money needs to be taken back. Wen asked his partner with displeasure, did she really ask him to come here just for this? The woman told the guy that he would have to put in more effort to win the girl over. The main character told the woman that he didn't mean to say anything at all with this money. Yuan told his partner that he would accept the money back from the girl. He received a payment message on his phone. The protagonist asked his partner if Mr. Wang had asked the girl to have drinks with clients from other projects. Fu explained to the guy that the man hadn't asked his subordinate about it. Su was simply monitoring the construction site. Yuan held the phone in his hands. He thanked the woman for her hard work and prepared to leave. Fu thought to herself that it would be very good if Su got together with the main character. Yuan was sitting in the car. She called him and offered to go for a drink at a cafe. The guy told the girl that he could come to her. The main character told his partner that this is how everything should be, and it was better for the girl to remain silent. Lin told her friend in a sly voice that he could come over. Yuan told his partner that he hadn't eaten anything. He would need energy to repair the air conditioner. Yuan was in his girlfriend's kitchen. She was near the stove. He asked what the hostess had cooked for him. Lin turned and looked at the guy. She had made him some pork kidney and bark soup. Yuan was delighted when he heard about the dish the girl had prepared for him. He liked the ingredients. Yuan hugged the girl and asked if she had ever made such soup for her husband. Lin turned around and asked the main character why he was not the same as last time. An hour later, the protagonist was holding a cup of food in his hands. He praised the hostess and said that he liked it. Yuan glanced at his girlfriend with concern and asked, "Is this really inconvenient for her?" Lin answered the guy thoughtfully that she had already decided to get a divorce. She wanted to achieve true happiness. The guy told his girlfriend in a joyful voice that he was very glad that she had the courage to make such a decision. The girl's affection for the guy increased sharply. She told him that she made her decision thanks to him. Yuan reached his hands towards his girlfriend's face. He told her that it wasn't him who broke up her marriage. His partner replied that that wasn't what she meant. The guy glanced happily at his girlfriend. He decided that when she got divorced, he would be able to openly spend money on her. After a few outings, her affection would reach 90 units. A man in a car stopped near an SUV. He couldn't understand who could buy such a car. Tan looked inside the car and saw the main character there. He decided that he might have seen this guy somewhere before. Tan realized that in the car in front of him sat a rich guy who bought the car and started sponsoring it. The man walked into the room and saw his wife. He happily told her that she had made him soup. Lin looked at her husband with displeasure. She thought that this food was not for him. The owner sat down at the table. He asked his wife with displeasure why she hadn't turned on the air conditioner. She replied that she wasn't hot. Lin thought slyly to herself that she was afraid that the main character's scent might remain in the room. The man was untying his tie. He slyly told his wife that he would take a shower and then they would have a good time together. 10 minutes later, the man couldn't open the door to the room. He decided that he had been washing for too long and his wife had fallen asleep. The owner collapsed on the sofa. He told his wife in an angry voice that she had had a chance, but she had missed it. He decided to find someone for himself. In the courtyard of the institute, there was a crowd of young girls and boys standing in the courtyard. They were discussing something among themselves. Fu went out into the courtyard and looked closely at the students. She was holding a stack of documents in her hands. The secretary carefully examined the candidates. She liked the eldest Yayu from the flight attendant class. Fu looked closely at the participant in red. It was Aisha. Jiang Ming stood in the courtyard in cosplay clothes. She had 200,000 subscribers. Fu thought to herself with displeasure that she was dressed very modestly. It was difficult for her to compete with such girls. A representative of the protagonist's class named Entron looked around carefully. He thought to himself that this wasn't a startup, but a plan to create a harem. He stared intently at the girls behind him. He didn't understand why the protagonist had included him on the list of participants. He could only wait for the boss's next move. A student wearing glasses named Mo Zhen approached from the side. He happily greeted the other participant. The protagonist came up behind the guy and told him he was surprised he needed help starting a business. Entron smiled and told his boss he was always looking for a way to get ahead. The girls were very happy when they saw the main character nearby and started taking photos with him. Yuan looked closely at the student and asked his name. The cheerful guy in glasses answered his partner that his name was Mo Zhen Wang. The protagonist told the participants with interest that one of them wanted to open a food store, and another a fruit store. Mo replied to his partner that he wanted to open a fried food store. Yuan told the students in a thoughtful voice that they had great potential in business. After the protagonist's words, I decided they had indeed been chosen. Entron thought to himself that he didn't care at all, as long as he could get investment. The protagonist told the participant that his resume indicated that he was an opinion leader on social media. Mo replied to his partner that he controlled the water army on the internet. Yuan asked the student if he had his own team. Mo explained to the boss that his team consisted of about 100 people. They had organized several large-scale events. Yuan told the participants they were free to go. He needed to chat with the students. Behind him stood admiring girls. 2 hours later, the protagonist was lying on the couch in the office. He told the secretary that she had done a great job. Fu was sorting through documents on the desk. She said that for the boss, you have to give it your all. Fu saw a student in front of her. She reminded her that the interview was already over. The participant told the secretary in an excited voice that she wanted to discuss something with the main character. The secretary looked through the door at the boss. She didn't know what to do. Yuan told the girl that she could go. The protagonist asked the student what had happened. The frightened girl asked her boss, did they really refuse her? The participant recalled that during the interview, the protagonist looked at two other girls. Yuan sat on the couch. He told his partner that the final list would be announced after the final exam. The student asked anxiously, will she have another chance? Yuan asked the girl in a sly voice. Did he really just not give her a chance? The student happily thought to herself that the guy had let her in, and this was her chance. He told him out loud, and she told him detailed information about herself. She could handle all the tasks in the startup hub. Yuan looked closely at his partner. He said that such work would be better done by an experienced accountant. The participant fell silent. She was carefully considering the protagonist's words. The student happily thought to herself that she had finally found a large Shen Yuan fish. She hugged him and said that her figure was better than the old accountant's. The student grabbed the guy by the tie and looked at him carefully. The guy thought to himself that it was difficult to find an accountant with a good figure. 40 minutes later, the guy was sitting on the couch. He told the girl that if she belonged to him, he wouldn't let her lose. Yuan looked at the student and said that they would go shopping this weekend. The main character was happy that his new girlfriend had developed an affection for him. A schoolgirl was walking down the hallway. She told herself that she was in a lot of pain. A woman looked at her from the side in surprise. Fu stopped the girl Jinhan and asked with great excitement, why did she do this? Khan glanced slyly at her friend and said that she was now happier than ever before. The guy looked at his phone. He decided to congratulate Lao Shen and his wife tomorrow, Friday. The protagonist's younger sister, Xuan, thanked him admiringly for the car for their father. She asked for a car for herself too. Yuan replied that he would do it all for her without any problem. The mother told her son in a displeased voice not to spoil his sister. She had a long way to go. The guy opened the door. He told the woman that the girl just wanted a car. After that, he told Lao Shen to get inside. Her relatives were already waiting for her. Lao was standing near the car. She told her mother that she didn't love her at all. The woman told the girl in a displeased voice to get in the car quickly. Inside the establishment, many people were sitting around a table. Women were sitting separately on the sofa. The guest was unhappy because Zhuan had not arrived yet. She didn't want to wait any longer. The woman said in a sly voice that her relatives should have warned her if something had happened to them. The guest said with a smile that Hong Zhuang called her today and asked her to write a message, but she completely forgot. Two women sat and talked angrily among themselves. One of them was upset that her relatives were interfering with other people. The man sat at the table. He remembered that one of them had always relied on the second brother's family for help. When they went bankrupt, everyone pounced on them with condemnation. A guest with a cigarette said that their relative's family was already at rock bottom. He was curious to see how the head of the family would try to deliver his toast. The woman approached the man. She told him that they could now only count on him. A guest wearing glasses sat at the table. He thought to himself with displeasure that this was a festive dinner for his second brother. Two guests were sitting at the table. The man told his colleague, A. Yen, that he had a new car. Things had been going well at his factory lately. Yen replied that he just earned a little money occasionally. A good car is necessary for maintaining appearances. The man told his partner in a sly voice that the new car needed good care. He offered the owner cleaning services. He asked the guest to call their relative and find out when he would arrive. The man in glasses thought to himself that the wife and the main character's mother had recently been in a tense relationship due to past events. The guest turned around and asked his partner in a disgruntled voice why they were being kept waiting for so long. The man explained that they should have waited a little longer. The door opened and the guests walked in. The guy apologized for being late. He said he'd drink 3 free drinks to apologize. The man in glasses told his partner that they hadn't been waiting for him for long. It wasn't dinner time yet. I said in a sly voice that they wouldn't have died of hunger yet after a short delay. He told the woman in a displeased voice that if she couldn't talk, she should keep quiet. The man glanced at his relative. He told him that if he was busy in the future, they could take him. The protagonist smiled and told his relative that if he needed help, he could contact them. The guest told the participants that they could all sit down and start eating. He looked at the guy. He felt annoyed that because of his nephew, he couldn't show off in any way. The guest grabbed a glass of drink and began to quickly drain it to the bottom. He rushed to the guy and anxiously told him not to rush to drink. No one blamed him for anything. Yen was dissatisfied because Shen Yaodi's relative refused to help him pick up his car keys. Shen looked at the man silently and remembered that he hadn't even agreed to membership. The main character reached out to the keys on the floor and handed them to his relative. Wen asked the man with great interest, "Does he really have a new car?" He took the keys from the guy's hand. He explained to him that his Volvo was very old. He replaced this car. The guy asked his partner what model the car was, and proudly told the protagonist that he had an X7. Yuan admiringly told his relative that such a car was worth about $1 million. The man clutched the keys in his hands. He told the guy that he had purchased a mid-level trim level. Yuan looked at his relative with admiration and said that he was simply magnificent. He looked at his relative with a proud look and said that he was just making a living. The woman at the table looked at her nephew with displeasure. He looked at his wife and hinted that they should stop. Soon, their relatives might ask them for a loan. The protagonist glanced at Lao Shen's relative and proudly asked when he would tell everyone about his Maybach. The bespectacled man calmly replied that it was just a car. The woman was surprised to hear about her relative's Maybach. He thought with displeasure that such a car would cost at least $1,700,000. The guest couldn't understand how their relatives could have gotten so much money to buy it. The man excitedly asked his relative if he had really bought himself a Maybach. The man told his partner that he had received the car as a gift from his son. The guests couldn't believe that the main character could give his father an expensive car. The man looked at his relative suspiciously. He decided that he had simply had too much to drink. He asked the man in an angry voice, could his son really buy him a car? The protagonist looked at his father. He waited for what he would say in response. Lao told his relatives with a smile that he did not understand why his son bought him such an expensive car for $3 million. The guests looked at the man in surprise. They couldn't understand how the guy bought a car for $3 million. The men looked at the guy in surprise. They couldn't understand where he got the money for the car. A waitress approached from the side. She asked the protagonist to transport his silver Geländewagen. The people at the table were very surprised when they heard that the guy had such an expensive SUV. He thought angrily that the cars in his relative's family would be worth $6 million combined. Another guest couldn't understand how his relatives could be doing so well. The man jumped to his feet with a kettle in his hand. He congratulated his relative and promised him a car care subscription. The woman glanced at Shen's relative with displeasure. She remembered that he had previously shown no respect for the old days. He sat at the table with a pile of food. He couldn't believe that his relative was doing so well. After dinner, the protagonist left with his sister in the car. Juan happily told her brother that he had been incredibly cool today. The guy told the girl that he would drive her home today. He had things to do in the evening. The sister told the guy with a smile that she wanted to have fun with him. Yuan promised his companion that she would meet her fiancé. Yuan got out of the SUV and saw an expensive car next to her. She wondered how much it cost. Yuan told her friend that such a car cost $2,800,000. The sister turned around and asked her brother in surprise, how does he know how much the car costs? Yuan explained to the girl that her sister-in-law's car was parked next to him. Yuan was very surprised when she heard from her brother that he bought his girlfriend an expensive car. The door opened and the coach came out. She greeted the main character with a smile. Liu asked the guy who had come with him. Yuan explained that his younger sister was standing next to him. Zhao peeked out of the apartment. She told the boy with admiration that his younger sister had also arrived. The girls joyfully greeted the protagonist's sister. They offered her a treat. Zhan looked at the girls with fear. She didn't understand why they were so kind to her. The sister turned around and looked at the protagonist with concern. She didn't understand which of the girls in front of her was her daughter-in-law. The three girls stood together. Men said in a joyful voice that they had come to help Zhao move. Men introduced herself to the girl. She said that the owner of the house, named Chen Na, was standing next to her. Zhuan looked at the girl with joy and admiration. She said that she saw her daughter-in-law in front of her. Chang looked at the protagonist with displeasure. She repeated his name to herself. Yuan looked at his sister and said in a cunning voice that both of her sisters-in-law were standing in front of her. Xuan was very surprised. She couldn't understand how two girls could be in the same room without any problems. The girl looked closely at the protagonist's girlfriends. They all stood silently. Xuan asked her partners with great excitement if her brother's words were really true. Men explained to her partner with a smile that her brother's words were indeed true. The sister looked at the protagonist with displeasure and called him a scumbag. Yuan glanced at his sister and thought that she needed to get used to the fact that his harem would become bigger. I extended my hand to the girl and said that they could go somewhere together and have some fun. Zhang told her partner that her sister had also recently completed her entrance exams. They could chat. Yuan excitedly promised her sister-in-law that her sister would unwind with her. Guest I stood to the side and looked at the girls talking in surprise. She was surprised that they found common ground so quickly. She asked the girl, "Can they really be in the same room?" She explained to her partner in a didactic voice that it had even happened before that two sisters shared the same husband. The girl looked suspiciously at her companion. She was unhappy because her friends were constantly forcing her to be their transmitter. The girl thought to herself with displeasure that the main character gives cars to Onam. They are at his expense. She gets nothing from it. The protagonist headed for the exit. He told them they could talk. He needed to leave and rest. Jane grabbed the girl's hand. She said her brother was going to take a break. They could go shopping together. Men smiled slyly at the girl and said that she would teach her all the secrets of hairstyling. Zhuan was very happy when she heard these words. A group of girls went down to the garage. They approached an expensive red car. Men in the garage shouted to her friend Qian that she forgot her purse upstairs. She asked her to wait. Qian in the garage received a message on her phone from her friend telling her to leave by taxi. She couldn't understand what business the girl could have had in Zhang's house. The trainer entered the room and approached the bed. She looked at him carefully. He couldn't understand what was pressing on his face. Love touched him. The protagonist jumped up in bed. He asked the girl in surprise, "Have you gone crazy?" She told him she didn't mean to scare him. Yuan, lying on the bed, asked his friend why she hadn't left with the others. The coach told the guy that she wanted to stay with him and keep him company. An hour and a half later, the girls continued to stroll through the shops. They carried groceries in bags. Yuan called her brother and asked him to come over. The main character was sitting inside a car on the street. He told his sister on the phone that he would arrive soon. The worker was sitting inside the establishment. He looked through the door at the expensive car near the entrance. The guy looked closer and realized that he recognized the main character. He had seen him before. The worker remembered that the main character had come to him earlier to cash out his loan. Last time, Yuan was able to withdraw cash from his credit card to buy a bag. Then he thanked the employee. The guy couldn't understand where the main character could get rich so quickly. Yuan looked at the girls walking on the street. He told his sister that she had forced her daughter-in-law to spend a lot of money. The worker happily thought to himself that the guy could have found himself some rich sisters. The stranger imagined the main character standing next to a young, beautiful girl at her feet. He decided that if he could find a rich lady a little older, he could get everything. The main character stood near the car. He watched as the girls loaded the groceries inside. Zhang explained to her friend that his sister would soon be going to university. She needed new clothes. She also bought small gifts for her aunt and uncle. Yuan thought to himself that she was usually reluctant to spend her pocket money. But she was very generous when it came to his parents or Zhuan. Zhang waved goodbye to the protagonist. She wanted to return to the cafe. Zhao Qi inside the establishment was overloaded. Yuan told his friend as he left that he would visit her in the evening. Yuan buckled up inside the car. He asked the passenger how much money she had spent. Zhuan held a mirror in her hand. She said she had spent 400,000. The protagonist slyly asked his sister why she was smiling over several hundred thousand. Zhuan leaned toward her brother and slyly remarked that their parents had never been so extravagant. The protagonist asked his sister in surprise if she knew what would happen when they returned home. Zhuan promised her brother that she would tell her parents that he had found 2 daughters-in-law for her. Yuan was driving along the evening street in a car. He continued to communicate with his sister. Yuan slyly told his sister that she could tell him next time if she liked something. The girl was very happy. The parents looked in surprise at the pile of gifts on the table. The mother asked her daughter, why did she buy so many things? Zhuan opened the box. She excitedly told her mother that the bride had bought all these gifts for them. The father asked his son in surprise, has he really started dating someone? The mother asked the boy why he didn't take his girlfriend home. Yuan explained to father that he hadn't said anything earlier because the timing wasn't right. Zhuan smiled and told the woman that their daughter-in-law had a very good character. The parents took their daughter to their place to ask her about the main character's girlfriend. Yuan sat nearby on a chair. Yuan thought for a moment and began to mentally list his plans for tomorrow. The main character told his girlfriend that he needed to pick up Xinyu tomorrow, so he decided to sleep here. Zhang told her friend that she was waiting for him. She wanted to try something. Yuan asked his girlfriend what she wanted to try. After her words, he completely lost the desire to sleep. The girl asked the guy to wait. He looked in surprise at the glasses of ice and water on the nightstand. He asked the girl with displeasure, doesn't she really want him to sleep tonight? The girl turned away. She took the glasses of ice in her hands. The guy sat there, bewildered. The woman near the car told her daughter to go to her sister's and help her at work. The daughter told her mother that the guy wanted to hire an assistant for her sister, so there wasn't much left to do. The mother told her daughter in a disgruntled voice that there was no need to waste money on an assistant. A girl standing next to her explained to the woman that Xinyu would leave early to get used to the situation. She would be with her and the main character, and nothing would happen. Yuan walked up to the woman and promised her in a cheerful voice that they would take good care of Xinyu. The car with the guy pulled away. The woman happily told the owner that her son-in-law had a very expensive car. The woman replied to her partner that as long as the main character and the girl were happy together, that was all that mattered. The woman thought to herself that since the last arrival of the main character, Xinyu had been completely smitten. The main character glanced at the girl in the mirror while driving and asked her where she went. Xinyu told him she went to Star City. The guy was driving in the car and looking ahead. He told the passenger that his sister had saved a room for her. Xinyu became excited when she imagined herself in her sister's room. She decided that she would be able to do something in the future. The passenger told the boy and his sister in a shy voice that she might disturb them. Yuan told the passenger in a sly voice that her sister was often bored at home alone. She would keep her company. Zhang turned around and told the girl that her boyfriend didn't stay with her very often. Xinyu's affection for the main character grew. She thought that thanks to him, their family's situation had completely changed. Yuan looked at the girl. He didn't understand why the favor indicator appeared next to her. He was surprised that she had any feelings for him. The protagonist dropped his passengers off at the car. He told his girlfriend to go have some fun with her sister. He had other things to do. Zhang waved to her friend and told him to go about his business. Yuan pulled up to the parking lot. It was near Li Ming's house. Someone was sitting on the hood of their car. The man called the girl on the phone and asked her to give him another chance. He wanted her to come downstairs to him. Yuan looked at the stranger. He realized it was Li Ming's ex-boyfriend. Now it was clear why his girlfriend had such a strong dislike for men who cheated. The protagonist looked forward happily. He decided to help his girlfriend. He didn't expect that the girl would feel indebted to him. The stranger leaned out of the car. He shouted angrily at the protagonist that he couldn't leave because of him. Yuan thought he wouldn't be polite to such a driver. The protagonist stuck his head out the side door and told the driver it was his problem. The stranger leaned out of the car. He angrily asked the guy, "Does having money really make him so incredible?" The protagonist looked at his partner and asked, "Is he really Li Ming's former friend?" The driver angrily asked Yuan, "Who is he?" The driver jumped out of the car and slammed the door. He angrily asked the guy, "Is he really dating me now?" The protagonist didn't answer his partner. He sat calmly in his car. The man stood on the street and looked at him. After a short pause, the man promised the protagonist that he would not have a happy future with Li Ming's girl. The protagonist looked closely at the stranger. He realized that the man had used the same trick on him that he had used to irritate Ho Jun at the university gates. The protagonist looked out of the car. He told the man that he didn't want to have the girl completely. Her body alone was enough for him. The stranger was very frightened and shocked. He imagined the protagonist in Li Ming's arms,